to psychology evaluation around April. Then you go to an external assessment. And the problem is that HR is assigning you, and you have no idea until April when the external assessment is, which is then like the final thing.
Yeah.
And they have one external assessment each month from May to December. And it's somewhere in between then when you have like, okay, you're up in August. And if that happens, I'm not at Gamescom. But I won't know before April. So, yeah, it's a long ass process, man. Okay, guys, we have the starting soon running, but I turned on the mic. We'll be right with you guys. Merry Christmas, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and we are live with the last podcast of this year. And it's our Christmas episode. Christmas is around the corner, 3 more days. Dutch, have you prepared for Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have. All gifts are wrapped. The kids are getting new tablets, man. So installed everything, set up the kids' account. So Good. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. We had a little boo-boo while we were running the starting soon screen. We accidentally turned on our mics, and you could hear our pre-show chit-chat. However, it should be fine now. Welcome to you guys all in the chat. I see a lot of familiar names here. Great to see you guys, and welcome to everyone who listens after the fact here on YouTube or on the podcast services around the globe. And welcome to you, Dutch. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, you? I'm doing well.
One more day of work and then I'm off for 2 weeks, which is fantastic, and I cannot wait. So yeah, I'm doing good. Feeling the holiday spirit, you know. Lots of good food coming up, lots of family visits. And then we go for a 4-day trip to the south of Germany over New Year's with the kids and wife. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to taking a few days off. We will be back in 2 weeks from now. We're just letting everyone know up front on January 4th. We're gonna have the next and first podcast of 2024. But next week we'll take a break, and I guess you guys will too. So yeah, enough of the holiday chit chat, man. We have a packed show here today. I did not expect Dutch to have so many topics to talk about. In the last week before Christmas, usually there is zero news, and all you can do is talk about what happened this year, you know? But no, not this week. Not this week. We have, of course, the massive Insomniac Leak, and not a day goes by where we learn more stuff. And just today we had multiple very interesting things coming out of this leak regarding Sony and their strategies and so on. We'll definitely talk about that. But also yesterday during your show, basically, it broke that Xbox is going to reorganize a lot of their senior leadership team. We'll cover that. Man, we have some fantastic news for console owners and FSR3. We will definitely talk about that. There is this rumor out there that Xbox might launch a new the next gen early as 2026, and we will definitely talk about that. But we will also do a highlight show in this podcast and talk about some of the major things that happened in gaming in 2023, because this was a big year, and we will follow up basically on what you did on your podcast, just in a very different way. But stay tuned for that. So first, of course, as always, you guys can vote what game you want to watch gameplay of during this show. So definitely hit the poll in the chat and vote for the game you want to see here today during today's show. As of right now, Avatar is leading, but yeah, that has also been the game that I played most of this week. But first, Dutch, what have you been playing, man? And let us know in the chat what you guys are up to. What are you playing?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really played anything the last couple of days. I played a little bit of PUBG with Erwin and Hertog at the beginning of the week, which was awesome. It's been a while since we've been on that, but it's good fun. And other than that, I've been
Are the servers still full?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you find the game in like 20 seconds. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, thankfully. Yeah, it's still running really well. It's buttery smooth to play now.
Sweet.
So no issues there. It still looks ugly, but...
Yeah, man. It looked ugly when it came out, and now it's, how old is that game? 6-7 years now, I want to say.
Maybe even longer now.
Or even older, so longer. Yeah.
But no, plays fantastically, and but yeah, so just been jumping on that. I've been meaning to stream and things like that, but I've been in a creative mood, so I finished the PS5. PS5 now.
Beautiful. Is it your own? Did you do your own?
Yes.
For you. Oh, yes. Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now the selection is sorted now. I've got the Series X, S, and PS5 all customized, and the Switch as well, but that's like just red and blue. But yeah, so that's that done. So that's where my time's been spent creating that. I can get back to playing games now.
Nice.
I've turned my Series S into my indie machine, by the way. So I've installed a bunch of the indies onto that machine, and I'm going to use this.
I do that on the Ally. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Series X is now for my big games, the big AAAs, the big shoulder-buster, graphical, intensive stuff, and the Series S is used for every indie that comes out that I want to play.
Sweet. Nice. Sounds like a plan, man. Sounds like a plan. I do that with the Ally. I still have like AAA games on there. Starfield always installed on that. I still have Baldur's Gate on it and Diablo. But yeah, I tend to play a lot of indie games lately on it. I actually started Spirit of the North.
Nice.
Which is absolutely a fun game. It's a very chill game. It's like a puzzle platformer. You would guys maybe remember that indie showcase Xbox had back in September or so. It was highlighted there. It's the game with the fox, and very chill game. And Dutch, it runs on ultra settings at 60 FPS on the Ally, which is insane. But yeah, I've been playing that and a lot of Avatar after finishing Final Fantasy, man. Finished Final Fantasy 16, fantastic game, had a blast with it, incredible story, fun combat system. I thoroughly enjoyed that game. It has its flaws, like the boring side quests, but overall it's drop that gorgeous. It's fun to play, and the story is fantastic. So definitely a recommendation from my side. And then Avatar sucked me in now, and man, that game is just I think it's the most underrated game of this year.
Yeah,
honestly, the more I play, the more I love it. It's an incredible open world. It doesn't hold your hand like, you know, with the other Ubisoft games. You have all the question marks on the map, but no, not this one. It doesn't hold your hand. It's dropped that gorgeous. Story really develops as soon as you have encountered a couple of the clans.
You can even make it even less friendly if you want, and turn guided off and just have it exploration, and then you can't find anything.
You really can't. I tried that. Not for me. I need a little guidance, man.
Yeah.
But it is really, really good. So yeah, that is what I've been playing mostly. Here and there, of course, a couple of Age matches. So
standard.
Of course, there can't be a week without Age of Empires, man. It's not a week. Nightmare. JB in the chat is back on GTA 5. Nice. Dustin Lambert started Cocoon. I have that installed on the Ally, and I'm still torn in between Cocoon or Jusant. One of the two I will start next.
Jusant. Cocoon's much longer.
Okay, if you say so, man. Igor is playing RoboCop. Yeah, I've seen that is on the New Year's sale on Xbox. I've considered that. Dazzy Baby is back on Final Fantasy 16. Jason is going back and forth from Starfield, GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Far Cry 6, and Tomb Raiders. Bro, that's a big ass list of games. I wouldn't be able to do that, play that many games in parallel. And True Iron Leg is playing the Tomb Raider trilogy again, which is awesome. And Farming Simulator, of course. Dustin Lambert is also chipping away the new Forza races. Very cool. Yeah, man, good stuff. What our community plays here. So, yeah, I think over the holidays we all will have a little time off. Some longer, some time shorter. But I hope we all get some good gaming in and do get to catch up on our backlogs and the games we have not been able to play this year. So that's at least what I intend to do. So I still have to
I'm going to attempt to do that. I think next week's going to be a bit better for me for gaming.
Yeah.
Now I'm got my creative side out the way of.
Sweet.
Now I can just sit and chill and play more games. I need to finish Final Fantasy 16. Well, I say finish them. I'm going to end up putting some hefty hours in that. And then Avatar, I'm just going to chip away at Avatar because that's just massive.
Yeah, Avatar definitely. RoboCop is a game I'm eyeballing, and I want to browse through the sale that is going on.
Yeah, to see what you can put on your console that you'll never play.
That's exactly what's going to happen, right?
My problem with it. I've got a bunch of games there that I've played like a couple of hours with each of them, and I'm like, yeah, I'll come back.
I see. I never do that. If I play a game longer than 2 hours, I usually finish. 99% of the games that I play longer than 2 hours, I actually finish.
I get sidetracked by other games though.
Yeah, I don't. If I commit to a game, I commit and I finish it.
You're not a multiplayer gamer though. That's the problem. So if, like, for instance, I'll be playing through a game and then someone will jump on and be like, "Oh, do you want to play this for a bit?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go on." Then I'll jump on and play that. So I play like a co-op or a PUBG or something like that, or Halo for a bit, and then I don't end up jumping back to the game that I was playing. That was single player because I spent like 6 hours playing PUBG or Call of Duty or Halo or whatever it was, and then I just move on.
I don't do that. I usually I have like one main game that I play. I have like Age. Okay, that's my go-to game. Yeah, I do a couple of matches, but it's an ongoing game for me. But then I have my main game and maybe one indie in parallel, and that's it. And that's it. And then I play one game at a time, but I actually finish them. So I do have that list of games that I pretend I want to play, but really never will. But if I start a game, I actually finish it. So that's just me, man. That's just me. But yeah, Dutch. Let us get into some of the topics, and let's start with probably the biggest news item of the week, and that is the massive Insomniac leak. Well, it's not a leak. If we are honest, it's a crime. Insomniac
they were hacked beyond belief.
Exactly, they have been hacked beyond belief. They didn't pay the $2 million that the hackers actually wanted, and so
speaking of hackers, by the way, before we continue with this one, the hacker that released the GTA 6 one was sentenced to life in medical prison.
Yes, and you know what he did from prison?
Yeah, he hacked Nvidia and EE.
Exactly, with a cell phone and a Fire TV stick. That's like,
and he said he will always hack and he'll never stop.
Yeah.
So they've just sentenced him to life. So that's take two. So Sony, I think, need to invest in whatever lawyers that these guys have got.
No. If a guy in prison can hack or under police surveillance, can hack their servers with a cell phone and a Fire TV stick.
That guy's dangerous.
That guy is a genius, most certainly, but something is wrong with their security, man. Something is wrong with their security. Like, that's really insane. But yeah, let's talk about Insomniac, man. So the hackers basically released everything that they stole from Insomniac. Of course, a lot of footage from Wolverine has been going around. As of today, actually, a playable PC build is floating around. So there are playable PC builds for Wolverine you can download and actually play on your PC. And I've seen footage from people posting it on Twitter, actually playing the game. That is a massive leak. But there has also been, of course, a lot of interesting stuff in terms of Sony's strategy and what they want to do with Insomniac and other studios, and how they see Xbox. And we will get through everything, but let's start with the actual game leak of Wolverine and maybe their game roadmap that also leaked. And we don't pretend, by the way, not to cover this because we don't cover leaks like some other outlets do. Yeah, and then they cover the leaks when it's not PlayStation. No, of course we will talk about it. Dutch, what did you make of this? We've seen the roadmap. Yeah, Wolverine is slated for 2025 as of this roadmap. They apparently have a game for next year with. Now I'm blanking on the name. Venom, thank you. A Venom game. I expect that to be like similar to Miles Morales, like a DLC, standalone DLC. And then they have way later, 28, 29 X-Men games coming. So, yeah, they apparently are now a superhero studio, a Marvel studio. And we've seen a lot of footage, everything. I think most have seen it, at least. Have seen a lot of footage. And I definitely want to hear your thoughts. And while you share that with us, I'm going to close the poll in the chat. Avatar 1. We're going to watch some Avatar footage here today, man.
Good. Pretty game.
Gorgeous game, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. I think the worst part out of this is it's horrible that the fact that the hackers not only targeted kind of just the game information, but also all the personal files of all the employees. So all the employees' files were all leaked as well. Which
that's
is the worst
like
part out of it.
The worst part. Indeed, yeah.
Like the backlash of seeing your work online way earlier than it should have been is obviously horrible in itself, but being then jeopardized, all of your banking information, passport details, and everything leaked to the public is just the absolute worst. Now, obviously, worldwide, kind of using someone's passport details for fraudulent purposes is a prisonable offence anyway.
Yeah.
However, everyone that's had their details leaked will now probably have to replace their passports or change their passports at their own expense, although I expect Sony should cover this for the employees that have been affected.
Yeah,
they'll be having to get onto their banks to change all their banking details to make sure that they don't get hacked, or at least get onto the fraud departments at all their banks. So, I mean, that in itself is just so much right before Christmas, such a worry for all of these staff members. And we're talking all of them, not just developers, but every staff member there, for having that information leaked just before Christmas. And I hope nobody's information's been used or any kind of banking's being jeopardized because of this leak for those staff, because that would be the absolute worst.
Yeah, indeed.
On the gaming side of things, as much as people might like Marvel, and we've had this mini discussion on Twitter, we disagree on this. I find it disheartening to see a studio now being leveraged mainly as a Marvel studio and essentially nothing else. And I think primarily,
they still have Ratchet and Clank in the making.
Primarily the reason for that, though, and we've seen even more leaks because of that. But the reason for that is primarily the time frame between releases is just not enough to make a significant difference between releases. You're talking 6 major AAA titles in 8 years. You're not going to really advance the medium in that space of time between release. Like, you're talking just over a year between each release. I mean, your studio is going to be worked to the bone. I don't care how many different teams they have. 6 releases in 8 years is insane. They've already put out the most titles this gen for Sony anyway.
They have been carrying them on their back.
And now we know that. I mean, Insomniac essentially are the only pipeline of games we know of that exist in Sony. And they are rammed to the bone. Whereas the likes of Naughty Dog have just cancelled a project that they've been working on for 4 years and are now and at least another 3 to 4 years until they release their next game, their single-player game, because they've had to pivot all 400 staff from a multiplayer game to a single-player game, which is in its infancy. So Naughty Dog aren't under the same pressures. Naughty Dog aren't under the same pressure to release 6 games in 8 years. They haven't released one in 8 years.
Mm.
And the next game releases. It's insane. And then we have a look at the rest of them. I just feel sorry for the developers. And again, at initial times when they're releasing Venom, they'll be okay. When they're releasing Wolverine, they'll be okay. When they get X-Men, they'll be okay. Then they'll be talking about Spider-Man 3, which is the one after that.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, when you're at that point, you've released like 4 games back to back in 4 years, essentially. A lot of them developers will start be getting like, right, I'm getting a bit sick here. I think you'll see a lot of shift in developers at Insomniac for that reason. But we also know they're gonna have, and we'll get into that in a little bit. They'll be having a little bit of a shake-up as well for other reasons.
Yeah,
I just think they're going to be. I think Sony are putting far too much pressure on Insomniac to deliver far too much with these Marvel IPs in such a short period of time. I don't see these games being different enough between the releases that they'll maintain the status quo as the best.
I definitely do agree on that point. I mean, they always have been a very efficient developer. Yeah, even before they were acquired from Sony. If you look at the release cadence, what they had, with Ratchet and Clank, and then Sunset Overdrive, and then the remake, and then Spider-Man, and it's like, they have been putting out games quite frequently. The thing I do agree upon is that, of course, you will have to ask where's the differentiation in between games. I think the difference in between a Ratchet and Clank and a Sunset Overdrive and a Spider-Man, the 2018 Spider-Man, they were quite different games. And we've seen the footage now of Wolverine, and I truly do like what I've seen, but there's no denying that there is a certain similarity towards the Spider-Man games. Yeah,
very similar.
Combat looks very similar. A little bit
more,
a little bit slower.
From the Spider Sense.
Spider Sense is there. Even the climbing on the buildings and everything. It looks familiar. Yeah. Not that I'm not really complaining, but I'm definitely, there's no denying that it looks similar. Since I really enjoyed the Spider-Man games and Miles Morales, of course I'm looking forward to play more. This is apparently more mature. Dismemberment and everything, M-rated. Love it, great, cool. But then, of course, the question is, what comes after? If I play like Venom next year, again, very probably very similar game to what we have already played with Spider-Man 2. And minor spoiler here, sorry, just for the sake of this conversation, there's a certain part where you actually play as Venom, and I think they will extend on that. So I have played that, and the year after I played Wolverine, and it feels very similar, and then it comes to Spider-Man 3, and it comes to X-Men, and the question really is, of course, what kind of innovation will they bring into gameplay, storytelling?
We have to compare it to the major complaint that we've got with the likes of Call of Duty, which is because it's become an annual affair.
Yeah, exactly.
The innovation between releases
is minor. It's minor. If you simply swap out the characters, and in this game you play Spider-Man, you play Wolverine, and then in the next game you play 3 different X-Men characters. So we'll see. Yeah, we were judging early. We haven't seen anything of Spider-Man 3. We haven't seen anything from X-Men, so we don't know. It's just an assumption, of course, but. I don't mind the fact that it's all superhero games. I do love superheroes, or like the Marvel universe, or like I even prefer the DC universe. I do like that, and it's not like we get 5 superhero games a year. Yeah, if I look in recent years, yes, we have seen the 2 Spider-Man games and Miles Morales, but the last Batman game is like ages ago, 8 years now. Almost 9 years. It's not like I don't feel saturated with superhero games. I am not. Even if I play in the next, the roadmap was from now to 2020 to 2030, and we get 4 more. That's cool. I'm cool with that. Yeah, playing like.
The only thing
the problem is it's all from the same developer. It's all the same gameplay. That's, of course, that's where we will see how will this transition, man. Definitely. But
the one thing I want to see from Blade, it's R-rated. We know the game's R-rated.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it's alpha build, but I hope to God Insomniac do go that route. I'd rather Wolverine is going down the Logan route, where it is very brutal and it is dismemberment and things like that, and not what we've seen in the alpha build, which is just a little bit of blood splatter on the wall.
Yeah, that's very true. I was also like, okay, don't interpret too much into it. It's alpha footage. And then you see other gameplay segments out there, and honestly, for an alpha build, this already looked pretty detailed. Like there was all the light, there was a lot of lighting, reflections.
I don't know whether or not you looked too much at Wolverine's face. I didn't like his character model.
Not a too big fan of that either. He looked more like a cowboy rather than like the
wolf. Looked like his head looked like really round. I don't know whether or not it was just me. He looked like kind of squishy.
But yeah, man, it's like.
But these are things that can improve.
I have not played a bad Insomniac game yet, so they have my benefit.
It's not that they'll make bad games. It's not that any of these games will be bad games. I think my main worry just stems from the fact that because Sony are pushing them so much to release so many games in such a short time span.
And let us use that as a segue, because one of the things we learned today actually is that Sony. It was like an internal presentation or email that also leaked. They want them to lay off people in between 70 to 90
significant amount.
Yeah, like a significant amount. 70 to 90 people is what leaked earlier, and they want, and it was very specific. Like, get rid of the low performers and move over some of the high performers from the Passion Project that is also in the roadmap, which we don't know. Smaller Passion Project apparently in the making.
They mentioned Ratchet and Clank and the other smaller.
And there was a smaller project, exactly.
Yeah.
And move those high performers from those projects over there. They're very heavily affected by the cost cutting within Sony. There's also the talk of Sony shutting down of one of their PlayStation or Sony PlayStation Studios.
Yeah.
No idea which one. And so, we mentioned it earlier. Insomniac has been carrying Sony through this generation. Yes, there have been. Santa Monica has released God of War, obviously. There was Horizon Forbidden West. But they also had, like, the launch title with Miles Morales. They had Ratchet and Clank. They have now Spider-Man 2, which was the only PlayStation game, first-party game in 2023. Like, Insomniac has been carrying them, obviously. And if you look into the roadmap ahead, they have 24 Venom game coming, 25 Wolverine. So they are a powerhouse studio for Sony, which obviously their biggest issue is not having anything on the roadmap. Now it looks at least we get a DLC in 2024, if not a full-fledged first-party title from one of the other studios. At least Insomniac is carrying them, and they want them to lay a significant amount of people off. And so, Dutch, what do you think of this? And what do you think? Which studio might they shut down? Which was also in that conversation.
Yeah, it's you know what it is. I find it absolutely insane that Sony dare tell Insomniac, the only studio that's been powerhousing them through this generation, to release developers, when none of the other studios have stood up outside of Sony Santa Monica and Insomniac to release anything of note. this generation. At the beginning, you had Guerrilla with Horizon Forbidden West, but even then, both Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok were cross-gen. So those were games in development prior to the generation starting. And ultimately, we found out essentially they were PS4 games with PS5 enhancements. And then Insomniac have literally been carrying them ever since. Like you say, from the start with Miles Morales, then a remaster, and then Spider-Man 2, and then Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And now we've seen the roadmap of all their games that they're releasing. So next year you get Venom, the year after you get Wolverine, the year after you get X-Men, the year after that you get another IP, whether it be Ratchet or another one. The year after that you get X-Men, the year after that another IP, the year after that X-Men. Like, they literally have a game released every, apart from next year, every year since the generations began. And what are the other studios doing? And Sony have the goal to go to Insomniac and say, release some stuff. Why?
Yeah.
At this point, it makes me wonder, why did you buy Bungie when you know fine well you are struggling to maintain the costs of development for the gate studios you've already got?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Listen. I don't want to be doom and gloom here, but it really worries me.
Which was the issue, wasn't it? It was the stress development cost, which they're saying like it costs
300 million.
To make a game now. And then they've done the good thing is they've done a comparison internally at Insomniac and said, listen, we can release mid-sized games instead of AAA games. We can take 2 mid-sized games and save 100 million for the cost of a AAA, or 3 mid-sized games for the same price as a AAA game,
and actually have games
make the same money, if not more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, this is if you look at Insomniac alone, it sucks for the people that are about to get laid off.
Yeah,
it definitely sucks. But if you look at the bigger picture, there's really a serious management issue in the within the Sony PlayStation organization. We can't deny it. It is so obvious. All we hear from studios is problems. We have no idea about a bright roadmap. Yeah, you can argue, and we've argued here on this channel a lot, especially early in this year, about some management problems within Microsoft, and they definitely have also their backpack full of issues there. But at least we knew that the roadmap eventually looks great for Xbox. Yeah, we know about all those games that are coming, from State of Decay to Perfect Dark to Avowed to Fable. There's like an insanely great roadmap that we already know of, and we know there's a lot we don't know yet. So yeah, if you look at Sony, we don't know anything. We have the leaked Venom DLC now, and Wolverine we already knew of. Yeah, and that's it. That's about it. Then we hear the problems, obviously, with financing everything. And what has Microsoft been saying for many, many, many years now? Only relying on the sales metric alone is not a sustainable business. And obviously it shows. Within Sony, it shows. We just had the issues over there at Bungie. And listen, the studio that invented Halo, is now really in big, deep problems. We have had the Naughty Dog thing, canceling factions. We heard now this over at Insomniac. We see all these issues, and on top of that, we have no idea what excites us about the future of Sony. They've been far too quiet for way too long. And this is this is starting to pile up. Yeah, you do big layoffs at your powerhouse studio that has been carrying and will be carrying you through 24, because I highly doubt that they have anything else other than that Venom DLC for 24. And they release it as a standalone release simply for the fact that they can say, hey, we have a game. Yeah. And not just a DLC to download. It's like there is something, yeah? There's something going on. And we have seen with this leak from Insomniac some of the slides, some presentations about their strategy. And just earlier today, I watched a slide that says what are the 3 main columns of the future PlayStation business. And what did it say, the slide? What are the 3 basic columns? It's exactly what Xbox has been doing. And Xbox has been criticized, especially by mainstream media, for many years now. But Sony has exactly the same plan. Yeah, release games on multiple systems. PC, mobile, cloud was definitely in there. They heavily spoke about in this presentation as one of the core pillars being PS Plus and how they can make subscription services more attractive, even expands PS Plus to PC. Guess who has been doing that 6 years ago? So it really reads like, okay, the first place is copying the third place, in the console business. And yeah, obviously they have some. And the third pillar by the way, being games as a service titles, ongoing games. Yeah. So, and they've been struggling with all of those because they don't really commit to anything of that. When they relaunched the PS Plus subscription and basically made it the Game Pass of PlayStation, they didn't really commit. They didn't do day and date. They made it a little bit more expensive. They hit like key things in between the highest tier. They wanted to make a high tier that you can pay for demos, basically. What it is, yeah? They didn't really commit. I've said this a couple of times on this show. It's not that PS Plus is a bad service per se. If you are a PlayStation only customer and you subscribe to the service, it's a good offer. Still, I like subscription services. It's a little bit more expensive than Game Pass, and it's but there are good games in there. But to really like make this the thing you want to get on PlayStation, you need day and date, and they do not commit. And they've spoken out about publicly so many times. They've spoke out publicly way more often negatively about subscription services. They hurt the business. It's not sustainable to do day and date, and it's not. Yeah, the money is made with sales, not subscriptions. They've said all these things over the last 3 years multiple times publicly, but they never committed publicly like, yes, subscription is the way to go forward. Yeah, they did the same thing with the multi-platform thing. Yeah, we bring our games now to PC, but we do it selectively, and we do it a year, 2, 3 years after the game comes out and when nobody cares anymore. And it shows in the PC sales, yeah? There's barely a PC game. The highest selling PC game had like 3 million copies on PC. That was the highest selling one. There were other PC releases they had that didn't even hit 1 million sales on PC. So, yeah, they're not committed to this. Yeah, we do it a little bit, but we really want you to buy the console and buy the plastic disc, and that's it. That's what we want you to do. So yeah, you're not behind this. And the games as a service, obviously they lack of, because games as a service titles need patience. Tell me, Dutch, do you know one games as a service title in the last 5 years that launched and was a straight success? Like
none of them.
None of them.
Any games as a service game that released took at least 1.5 to 2 years to become okay.
Yes.
Before it started getting good.
Exactly. Like if you look at the biggest ongoing games as a service titles right now, they all launched with problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even my favorite, Diablo. Yeah. Like I loved Diablo. Yeah. It's in my top 3 of this year. But there's no denying that they messed up with the first initial patches where they buffed and a lot of the characters, and then season 1 wasn't really cool. Now they start to get back there, but you know what I mean. Like games as a service titles all take patience, and Sony does not have that. If something is not an initial success, it's not on their radar. They shut the games down, they cancel games, they even shut down studios. It's not like you have to have patience. Look at Sea of Thieves, which is arguably one of Xbox's biggest ongoing games that took years to get it where it is now. Or even State of Decay. The State of Decay 2 was a phenomenal game, but it took them years to make it like this. Okay, games as a service, grounded. Took them 2 years in early access to get it to a successful launch. Halo and so on. I'm repeating myself.
So it requires a really, really patient team behind them that are willing to sit there and fund what is classed as a failing game until it becomes a successful game. Sony will never do that. They will never. That's why I said, like, what Sony need, and this is something that Sony don't do, that they absolutely require, is if you're not willing to invest in a games as a service game on a timescale front, not a monetary front, on a timescale front, which they're not willing to do. They're not willing to sit there and wait for a game to get good, which is what all games as a service games need to do, because you don't release as the finished product with the games as a service until it's got a steady pipeline of content that is there, and you've got like about 3 years worth of content built up for anybody that jumps into it for the first time, that essentially you've got infinite things to do. Then the game isn't going to work. What they need to do is have games with multiplayer sections in them, or even do what Ubisoft do with the likes of Avatar, which is a good example, by the way. You have skins, you have weapon skins, no matter what game this is. Skins, weapon skins, like microtransactions that everybody knows what they're buying for their characters in their single-player games. Spider-Man's a key thing. If you have a look at Insomniac Spider-Man, and I know people love the fact that they give like 30 free suits that you can collect in-game, like just by doing certain tasks and things like that, you unlock them all. But the smart man's bet on a business front would be, we'll give you 15 suits in the game that you can collect, and 15 suits that you can buy with microtransactions.
Exactly. You don't have to. You don't have to have a games as a service title like a Fortnite or whatnot.
You can be a Ubisoft game essentially that you can buy these skins. You can buy this.
They did that. They did that with one game. Then that is Gran Turismo. That's basically where they did something like that. Yeah, and arguably that's their biggest games as a service title, and nobody considers it a games as a service title. You don't have to have that. You can have a great multiplayer, classic multiplayer experience. Release a couple of map packs eventually, and
that's what the factions guys wanted, Boxy. They didn't want a games as a service game. They just wanted the original factions remade. That would have been fine. I don't know why. This is what the chase that Sony had, is they're chasing something they are incapable of doing. Yes. You are very capable at making a good multiplayer game, because you did that with Killzone, and you did that with Resistance, and you did that with Gran Turismo. So you can make a multiplayer game. So make a multiplayer game alongside your single player. You can just have a multiplayer mode, and then you have little skins and things like that you can profit off.
Exactly.
They're easy things you can make money off, and people will just play it, and you don't need to have a big team to maintain it. You can just make sure it's got enough maps to continue. Every now and again, you drop a new map in there, or you rejig a map, or you have a seasonal event. But that's not something that needs constant updating, like a big, grandiose games as a service game, like a Sea of Thieves, or like an Elder Scrolls, or anything like that, which requires big and massive packs and things that go onto it. Like multiplayer game, like perfect example on the Microsoft front, Gears of War 5, the multiplayer.
Yeah, perfect example. Do something like that. It's not a games as a service title. It's still supported after launch. It's a multiplayer game. Of course it's supported. But you have the optional microtransactions in there. The problem is to commit to all those things. Games as a service, the multi-device approach, and to make a substantial, self-sustaining subscription service, you have to commit to those things, and you need a management culture that supports that. And I don't think that they have that right now. They had the one guy, Jimbo, that had this vision. We give 10 studios the task to make successful games as a service title, and we're done. But that's not how this works. You have to have an organization that supports it. You have to give developers time, trust, funding to do that. And you have to be willing to risk something. And risking something implies that you will fail. You will release games that are not successful. Xbox has done that. Look at Redfall this year. Massive failure. Xbox takes risks. Some pay off, some won't. And it will be the same in the future. But that's what you need to do if you want to innovate and if you want to move the industry, your business forward.
What Sony need to do as well, and it's not just a risk factor, but Sony need to get off their high horse and stop thinking every game that they release has to hit 10, 15, 20 million.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they also don't have to think that every game that they release has to be a Metacritic masterpiece. I think they need to get off their high horse. Just because it's rated in this mid 70s to low 80s doesn't mean it's a failure. Like Days Gone did not deserve the treatment that it got from Sony.
It didn't. No,
it didn't.
But
they
had
the
other
studio,
games the same
studio
year.
Now a support studio.
Yeah,
they're a support studio. Like how disheartening would it be to be that developer? You put out a game that was played by over 10 million people that people actually loved, and because your bosses think, Metacritic wasn't great, then you're segregated down to a support studio. I think that's abysmal.
Exactly, man. Let me shout out Dave Ramos for the $2 super chat. Thank you, man. He says, one games as a service for Sony solved in one word, SOCOM. Yeah, exactly. You're sitting on IP. I have been hearing people, whenever they say, what should Sony bring back? I think SOCOM is one of the two that gets always mentioned. Like, always.
Killzone Resistance, SOCOM. They've got 3 big IPs there.
And you can turn those into great multiplayer experiences or games as a service if you want. They didn't do that. They tried to leech off the great name of Last of Us, make factions. Obviously, they failed for whatever reason. Wasn't sustainable, wasn't a good game, wasn't good business model, whatever it was. But yeah, and if you look at all that, it just tells me that there is something going on over there at Sony. When you look at the disconnect that they have with the fan base, if you look at the very empty roadmap, if you look at the major management leaving, we had earlier this year not just Jimbo, but Connie Booth left, and others. We had like those. We have the layoffs across all the studios. We have like games cancelled, games moved to. They moved half of their games as a service titles to 26, and others are now cancelled. And then you look at the problems over at Bungie. Like they have games as a service title that runs now for how long? 6-7 years, and of course this is not gonna do the same numbers like in the first year. Of course it won't. But no, Sony is very conservative when it comes to metrics and how you measure success and how you build your business. But then they put out these slides. Well, they didn't put them out there, but they built them for internal slices and tell everyone, these are our 3 core pillars that we want to do. Like nothing Sony does shows us that they actually do that. And this commitment problem to all the things they do is really what is showing right now. And for all the shit you can give to Microsoft for the things that they don't do wrong, they have a very different leadership culture over there. It's a very different one. Look at Sony's VR. They launched that, dropped the support after one game, and now nobody cares anymore. They were not committed. Yeah, look at the PS Portal. They put that handheld thing out because handhelds are suddenly like the big thing. They looked at the success of the Steam Deck and the Switch and everything, the Alley and the Lenovo, and we want to be part of this, but then they didn't really commit. Like, doesn't play native, okay, but it doesn't also really support streaming because it's only local network streaming. Like, what are you doing? This is not getting behind the idea of handheld gaming. Yeah, you're not committed to that. You're not committed to any of the things you do, and this is really like a leadership and a management problem that they have right now. Now Jimbo is out the door, and we have still no idea who will lead that ship. Yeah, the CFO from the Sony mother company taking now over. Like, really? Is that how you run a gaming? The gaming? Yeah. Again, and at the same time, we hear all those praises about selling 50 million consoles. Yeah. Just the other day they hit the milestone where they reported, we sold 50 million consoles, which is great. Yeah. Great big install base is important. One of the things Xbox should try to fix, in my opinion. Yeah. Try to get the install base bigger. At the same time, the games are not really sustainable anymore. Costs $300 million to make, which is
the issue with the sustainability, Boxy, isn't they can sell as many consoles as they want, but they have no recurring revenue stream from any of their IP. Yeah. Apart from Gran Turismo, none. So you sell a console, once it's sold, it's sold. If it's traded in and then sold again, they don't get anything from that. Same as their single-player games. If it's traded in, sold again, they get nothing from that.
Yeah.
When their games have launched, once they've got that initial sale, that's it. It's done. It's gone. Nothing else from it. With the likes of Spider-Man and Wolverine, etc., they don't own the merchandise rights, so they get nothing from merchandising. That would sell in part of that. So they couldn't even monetize that if they wanted to, which means the only way that they can solve this problem, because as we know, and as Microsoft have said, just doing big AAA games isn't a sustainable business model.
Yeah.
You need to have other avenues. You need to focus on smaller titles. You need to focus on mid-sized titles. You need to focus on multiplayer. You need to focus on mobile. You need to focus on PC. You need everything. So if one fails, the other one picks it up. If this one fails, it means you've always got a backup plan. If this doesn't work, that's fine. We've still got this. If this doesn't work, that's fine. It's all right. Don't worry. We've still got this one.
Yeah.
Sony don't have that issue. The issue they've got is they're spending £300 million on every big AAA release that they're putting out there. And they have to hit a minimum of 10 million units sold per to make up, even to go, okay, right, we've made our money back on the game. Now we can start making a profit. Yeah. Anything beyond 10 million is a profit. So if they don't sell that 10 million on the initial investment, they've lost money. It's not a sustainable business model, and Sony don't know how to fix that.
Yeah.
Not only do they not know how to fix that, but even like the basics, like we're saying, which is like every modern single player game that third parties are doing now, which is just sell skins for your single player games. Yeah. You can have some fun with it. Like if you have a look at like Uncharted, you could say, okay, we'll do the Uncharted, but you can put in like a Kratos skin where he's running around looking like Kratos or dressed like Kratos or something stupid like that. You can just have fun with it. Release some mad skins or full camouflage gear for him or full this or just tuxedo, sell that, whatever. You can just have fun with it. You need to have a recurring revenue stream beyond your initial release, and that goes for single player games as well. But they need to figure out how to do that, and they need to take risks. But the problem is as you've mentioned, they don't have the hierarchy to take the risks. They don't have anybody to point and to do these things right now. They don't know what to do. It's a weird place to be in, but it's something that Microsoft have forecasted for years and shouted down for. It isn't a sustainable business model, just pumping out £300 million AAA experiences all the time, because
again,
there isn't
a leadership and management issue. You have to have visions, and you have to commit to visions, and you have to bring the team on board to believe in that vision, into your targets. And that is simply lacking. Mr. China Dark in the chat brings up a great questions. He asks, do you guys think that the industry needs to reevaluate budgets? Look at Remedy, how they have a small budget but do more. Yeah, I think if you look at listen, hang on one second. Let me finish the thought because I think it's a great question, because if you will look at $300 million a budget for a Spider-Man, and that does not include marketing, development budget of 300 million, and you look at Spider-Man, and I loved Spider-Man 2. Don't get me wrong.
By the way, that also doesn't include the rights that they have to pay to Marvel either, which is another 100 million.
I'm not sure about that. Who covers that? Whether that's Sony or Insomniac. Be that as it may, if you pay $300 million development cost of a video game, that is basically an advancement of an already existing game. I'm not saying it's only DLC. They added a lot to it. They had a great story. They added new areas. They added new characters. But you already built upon an engine you had. Yes, you refined that engine. You already built upon gameplay mechanics that you had. You already built upon animations that you have. Yes, all refinements. But 300 millions for such a game is a lot. So yeah, I'm with this thought when you look at things like Remedy, significantly smaller budget, and then you look at the graphics in Alan Wake 2 and the storytelling and the animations and everything that in the sound design, what they did with such a small project. Even if you go way back in the days to Hellblade 1, let's look at that, super small team of 20 people made Hellblade 1, which is still an insanely gorgeous game to this day, and the best audio design you have ever heard in any of the video games out there. And something is up. You have to look at where do these high budgets come from. Others can do the same or even more with less. And it is a thing. I'm sorry I cut you off earlier, but
no,
share your thoughts.
We both had thoughts at the same time. It's just it happens all the time. We both we're just like, oh, right. Now I think what it is. A budgeting thing isn't so much an issue that they can really evaluate too much, because with real world issues comes the increased costs. So you talk about inflation, and because of inflation, you've got rising wages. Then you've got market competition for those jobs in the first place. So if you're a developer and you're getting paid $90,000 a year to do an artist role at Insomniac, but down the road you've got another studio that's willing to pay you $100,000 a year or $110,000 a year for exactly the same role, competitively, you're going to go back to the studio and say, okay, I've been offered a better role. Well, I've been offered the same role at this studio down the road, and they're offering 110, and I'm currently on 90. Like, for my own personal benefit, as much as I love working here, that is a significant difference in my annual increase, and therefore I'm going to move over here unless you can match my wage. Naturally, Insomniac don't want to lose these talented developers that they've got, these high performers, so they have to match the wage. And this is an issue. This is a market issue, by the way, a market-wide issue, and that's why the cost of games are also going up. If you're talking about studios with 200, 300, 400 staff, like where the average wage is around about 100,000, when you're talking about proper, like, seasoned developers, 100,000 and up on an annual basis for developers, you're already going into the tens or not, if not hundreds of millions of pounds worth of wages before you've even began looking at the development of this game. And that is something that also factors into it. Okay, right, we've got at least £100 million worth of wages are going for the next 5 years based on this game. So there's 100 million into the budget immediately. Then we're talking about the R&D, the actors, the sound, the voiceovers. If we do marketing budgeting after that, then you're talking about the actual time for development. Then you're talking about the general overhead costs of the studio and things like that. It's like all of this then factors in. So the natural cost of things is just going up.
Yeah.
The natural cost of things is going up. So it's not something that they can forecast. Well, they can really mitigate because that is just the world. And because it's getting so competitive in the marketplace, people are losing their jobs at other studios and then going over to other studios and then so on and so forth. There's like, even though like there's literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands, millions of developers worldwide on these amounts, and there is no shortage of jobs available for them. They will always land on their feet because there is so many developers out there willing to take people on, especially seasoned people. I don't think the cost of these games will come down because of the way the world is right now, and because the cost of everything in the world is increasing. The wages have increased, the cost of living, etc., etc. But the development costs also increased because of world factors, such as the cost of energy, which is drumming up the cost of things for the business. And then, like I say, just natural costs of whoever you're getting in to do these acting roles. Good actors, like all of these Sony studios want to get in. They want these high-profile actors for some of their games. They want these big IPs. Like I say, these Marvel IPs have very high costs or retainer costs to Marvel. If they don't hit a certain amount, they have to give them the license back, which means that they're under pressure just to get the basic targets. So that's an onus they've taken on themselves for wanting to be competitive with the Marvel IP. So it's not something they can forecast, but they have to start thinking smarter about how they make money on the back end of an initial release. Because the only unsustainable thing about these 200, 300 million pound releases is that once it's sold, it's sold. And because it doesn't have a recurring revenue stream after release, it's worth diddly squat in about 3 years' time. It's worth nothing. I mean, they're not making money on a £10 second-hand release, or even if they put that on sale for 15, they're not made any money on that £15, not a jot.
Yeah, that's true.
So if that's the ultimate issue, is they just don't have a recurring revenue stream, and they as you mentioned earlier, Boxy, they're half-arsing everything. They half-arsed the Portal, they half-arsed the PSVR2, and they've half-arsed PlayStation Plus, which should be one of their main focuses, is, okay, so how do we really make this enticing so more people subscribe to PS Plus? Because they've got just as many people on the base PS Plus as Xbox have on Xbox Live, Xbox Ultimate.
Yeah.
For a studio that has 140 million plus consoles versus a company that has not even half that currently, if not half that, they have the same amount of subscribers.
Yeah.
That isn't like that is wildly unsustainable. You need to think of a way to make more money from your consumers that isn't profiteering, as we say. We're talking about skins and microtransactions, things that people can see that don't affect gameplay, that isn't poaching off people, like loot boxes. You're talking skins, you're talking weapon skins, you're talking basic shit like this. That's the type of stuff they need to be thinking of for every one of their single-player releases.
Yeah. Like,
it sounds daft. People might hate them, but it does no harm to anybody because you don't have to buy them. They're just optional, and be surprised that... I mean, Fortnite and its Battle Pass is just skins.
Yep.
Even if you get the Battle Pass, the only thing you get from the Battle Pass is more skins.
Yep.
The whole game and the whole monetary return of that game is skins. That's it. That's what they make money on.
Yeah.
It's not even like they change the map once a year if you're lucky on Fortnite.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's such a basic model that, and I don't understand why they haven't just went, right, devs, the only thing we're requiring you to do now, right? I know you've got a single player. I know it's a single player game. But you've got an open world game that you're creating. Why not make a bunch of skins on the back end that we can just put in there as optional purchasing? Or you can purchase like Ghost of Tsushima. They could, like the horses you get. Why don't you make a bunch of armor for the horses you can sell on the back end?
Yeah.
A bunch of funky samurai blades you can like buy. A bunch of funky samurai armor you can buy that's customizable. Why don't you do that? This is stuff that they can do that doesn't take up much time. The art team can have fun making some funky stuff.
Couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, what we forget. I have an echo, by the way, coming on your end somehow.
I don't know. I don't think so. I can't hear no echo. I don't know if anybody else in the chat can hear
Okay.
echo, but
Anyway, the thing is, development costs are high, and yes, games cost more to make in 23 than they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. For multiple reasons. Yeah, you have to have a lot of more equipment. You have to have bigger teams. Games take longer. It's a lot of things make games more expensive. The problem is with the business model, like you could describe, that they only have like the big income after releasing a game, and in the years to develop those games, you have to fund the developers, and money doesn't come for free. Yeah. The investment process is a very expensive one, and all those things factor in, and I think that they are really struggling in that regard. They are not growing anymore. Their business is not growing. They are still successful. They do the same numbers with like they did last gen with the PS4. It's not a growing business anymore, and all those things factor in. That, yeah, I think Sony really do have their issues there, and I think also that this is probably one of the main reasons that Jimbo had to leave. He wasn't able to grow the business. He wasn't able to set the ship on a course where they move over into this world of reoccurring revenue and everything that they put on their slides. Yeah. But yeah, it is what it is, and we will see in the next 2-3 years where Sony is going towards. I sure hope that they will find a new captain that has a vision and that is being able to motivate the team and do some cultural changes over there.
I think what it is. It's the old adage: kiss, keep it simple, stupid. Like, you don't have to go overboard. You just need to do some of the basic things. You need to tweak a few of the things that are gonna, and people will buy that. Like Daft, I've mentioned it so many times already, but such an easy addition is just putting skins in your single players. Like Ubisoft does it, and they must make a fortune on them.
Definitely. So let me shout out the 65 people that are watching live right now. You guys are awesome. Let me shout out everyone who listens after the fact. And if you do enjoy the show, it would be awesome of you to hit the like button. And if you're new, definitely consider subscribing. We do this podcast every week, and we would appreciate the support here. That's one more thing on the Insomniac thing. There was it leaked earlier today. There were some targets that they had internally. Insomniac wanted to have Hellblade 2 level of graphics for Wolverine. They specifically said the photorealistic character modeling and animations in Hellblade, that's where they wanted to go with Wolverine. And we've heard from a certain fan base for a long time now. Yeah, Xbox can't do graphical blockbusters. Actually, we had one outlet, even a major outlet, calling them out for why did Microsoft buy a Ninja Theory? It doesn't make sense. Remember? And yeah, now Insomniac looks at this significantly smaller. I mean, Hellblade or Ninja Theory, they are still a relatively small studio. Yes, the team is now vastly or a lot bigger than the team on the first Hellblade, but in the AAA space, they are still with the around about 65 permanent developers working on Hellblade 2. Plus, of course, a bunch of support devs. They are a super small team in the AAA space, and they put up the reference for what is arguably one of the best looking, or at least in 2018, Spider-Man 2018 was one of the best looking games of Sony. What do you think of that? Hellblade already setting benches out there.
Yeah, it's nice that Insomniac are using Ninja Theory as a benchmark for what they look like. However, unless they're using Unreal Engine's MetaHuman, they will not get that level of fidelity in their character models.
Yeah.
Judging by what we've seen so far, they are way off with Wolverine to be
early alpha, though. Yeah, look at the footage that leaked from GTA, and look at what the trailer has shown.
Look at the first Hellblade shown versus what we've got now. It is and that's like years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's a significantly different system. It's a compliment to Ninja Theory on the work that they've done so far, but also a compliment to MetaHuman and Unreal for building an engine that's capable of doing something so detailed. But it also means that, and I don't think Insomniac realize that every person that is in Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice has been facial scanned in. These are actual people and actual faces from people that have been scanned in, like identical to what they look like. And then they've added the little makeup and stuff afterwards. And in some circumstances, did everyone's makeup and then scanned them in so it's as detailed as possible, so it looks like the makeup's already on. It's a level of detail that I think Insomniac, as much as they would strive to go for, I don't think the engine would allow it. Unless they're planning on changing to Unreal Engine 5 and using MetaHuman, then it won't achieve that status. It's not trying to sound harsh, but that's just the technology that Unreal have built that allows them to do facial scans to that level of detail. And it's going to be super taxing. And if they want to pump out 6 games in 8 years, they've got no chance. They've got no chance. Because you don't have the time. This is why it's took Ninja Theory so long to make Hellblade 2. Because it's the level of detail and the level of care that they've put into every orifice of this game that they're creating is going to be second to none. We're talking about scanning literally photo scanning the environment, scanning rocks and clothing and everything.
Photogrammetry. They did the level of detail that they put in, and you can tell it's a gorgeous game. Again, it's a smaller team. Sometimes it's not good to have like hundreds of people working on the same project. It becomes more complicated to handle.
Microsoft Studios as well. This is one thing Microsoft have going for them. Yes, they're not releasing these big AAA bangers yet, but the vast majority of their major studios are 200 or less.
Yeah.
I think the issue with Sony is their major studios have way upwards of 200 to 500 staff.
Yeah.
Which is an issue. And they're only working on one thing at a time. Like a lot of them. Outside of Insomniac, they're only working on one thing at a time. Like Naughty Dog, they had to pivot all 400 members from a multiplayer to start working on the single player.
True.
They were unable to have 200 working on the multiplayer whilst 200 start working on the single player. They literally said, we've pivoting all 400 staff back to a single player IP.
Yeah.
So this is one problem that Microsoft don't have. Each of these studios that Microsoft have, they've got 150, they've got 150 of the 200 staff at Insomnia at Ninja Theory working on Hellblade 2. The other 50 are working or start doing the groundworks and beginning working on the smaller projects with Project Mara and so on and so forth, using the same technologies they've used for Hellblade to go into Project Mara to have this photorealistic horror game. But every studio's got that. You look at Obsidian, have got multiple studios doing multiple things, or multiple teams doing multiple things because they can pivot that way. I think the issue with PlayStation is the pivoting thing. So it's highly complementary that Insomniac, that it's come to the stage where Insomniac are targeting Hellblade levels of realism. But yeah, I think it's just engine-wise, it's a bit out of their reach at the minute. I don't think I don't think the staff are incapable. I just think the engine that they have isn't capable.
Not if they don't redo it from scratch. For Wolverine, which I doubt if it is supposed to come out in 2 years. So, yeah, man. Insane news in the week before Christmas. But let us move on to a couple of other news bits that we had this week. There is this rumor going around that Xbox might launch the next generation of consoles as early as 2026. The rumor says that it then, of course, might be powering a Zen 5 CPU and an RDNA 5 GPU. It's also supposed to be cheaper than the 2028 PS6 then. So first, when I heard this, I was like, yeah, come on, not gonna happen, because Xbox is not gonna go into next gen and then being behind in hardware metrics, hardware performance, and power for the rest of the gen if they launch it early. Then I gave it some thought, man. And I don't think that it is that unrealistic for multiple reasons, honestly. Microsoft has been very vocal about them not being able to catch up in the console business. And the one generation where they did have a massive success and were able to keep up was obviously the 360 generation. Yeah, during the 360 days, in the first couple of years, the Xbox on a global scale even outsold PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 caught up, but it was a head-to-head race, you know? So they were competing in a console space. They are not this gen. They definitely didn't last gen. Some of the numbers we've seen even suggest that it's worse this gen than during the PS4 and Xbox One generation. However, what can they do? And Microsoft has been very disruptive in the console space. They knew during the Xbox One generation, when Phil Spencer took over, he knew he wasn't able to out-console Sony. He knew that. So he tried to do a lot of things in a disruptive way. The first move was the backwards compatibility program. And we look at it back now as if we had always had that, but we didn't. Consoles were not backwards compatible. There were some consoles had something like that. Like the first couple of million PS3 units had it, but then they removed it. And there was a Game Boy DS that was backwards compatible. But for the most part, consoles have never had backwards compatibility. And Microsoft realized, okay, this is now, the generation, Xbox One generation, is the console generation where people build up their libraries that they want to stick with, the digital libraries. And so what could they do? They didn't have the games, they didn't have the studios to bring out games at the time, but they tried to disrupt it with backwards compatibility. Then in 2017, they introduced Game Pass and xCloud and Play Anywhere. All disruptive things. Games suddenly came out on PC. No other console manufacturer has ever done that. Game Pass, obviously a very disruptive model. Doing the Netflix approach in video games. Yeah, very disruptive model. And Microsoft has been doing that because it's the only way to keep up if you are that far behind. And as great as their roadmap looks, and as bad as Sony's roadmap looks, there's still the problem of brand recognition. And we've blamed marketing a lot for that, and that's all true, and so on. However, what can they do to change that? If they launch head-to-head with Sony in 2028, Sony's still going to be like, for the customers that want a console, like the go-to brand. It's like their global footprint is simply there. It will be the same. They can bring out the better console again. Yeah, they did it this gen. The hardware is better in the Xbox Series X, but they will not be able to leverage that. Yeah, third-party games will have parity and so on. So what can you really do to disrupt this market? You get out of this console cycle thing. You just do that.
Yep.
Yeah. They tried to disrupt the console market this gen also with like the Series S and X 2 SKU launch. Nobody has ever done that. Yeah. But did it bring the change that they wanted to do? Probably not. Not saying that it was a bad idea to do that, but it didn't have the success they obviously wanted. They wanted the Series S to be the console for the casuals. That people, I can just get a super cheap console over there, and then I play my Fortnites and Call of Duties on that and the FIFAs and be done with it. And that was the idea behind the Series S. Yeah, have a cheap entry point into the ecosystem. But it didn't really do what they wanted to do. Yeah. The console market still is exactly the same like last gen. So what can they do to disrupt this? And I think launching the console, the next generation, a year, maybe 2 years earlier than your competitor might actually do the trick. Because by 26, we will have the PS5 Pro, but then again, for whom really is a mid-gen upgrade? I still want one. I stand behind the idea of mid-gen upgrade because, again, hardware advances way faster than the 8-year console cycle. I want the option to have an upgrade 4 years into a generation and just get better hardware. But this is for hardcore gamers. It's not for casuals. It will not... I would place down a bet without having any numbers to prove them, but I would take any bet that the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, that like probably 80+% of the people that bought the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro have already been customers of Xbox or PlayStation. So you're not growing this. This is a fan service. Yeah, you can call it what it is. It is a fan service for your existing customers, an option to upgrade. You're not luring in new customers with that. But you can do that with the next generation. And if you launch 2 years earlier, you have a major step up over the PS5 Pro. There will not be the parity thing. It won't be there. Like third parties, looking better on PS5 Pro than on the whatever the next Xbox is called. On Xbox Next, you will not have that because we talked about the leaked specs of the PS5 Pro last week during the podcast. There are certain limitations that they can do with the Pro. In terms of architecture, in terms of what they can afford to put in, and so on, to keep compatibility and so on. If you don't have to do that with the next gen console, you can really go Zen 5. Rumor says PS5 Pro will have Zen 2. RDNA 5. It will be out in 26. That's true. It's true. 24 is RDNA 4 and 26 is RDNA 5. And Zen 5 CPUs also being out. They are out for a year they will come out in 25 even. So it makes sense. It makes sense. You get the next gen rolling early. You get the power advantage for 2 years, and you truly get it this time. It's not like we had it this gen, where a lot of games ran even better on PS4. On PS5, on the quote-unquote weaker hardware. You will actually have the benefit. People will look over there. Oh man, this PS5 that I bought back in 2020 starts to look outdated. Like all the games look so much better on this Xbox Next now. It makes sense. It would disrupt the console cycle. And 2 years later, the PS6 comes out. Yes, they will have then even more performance. Probably Zen 6, maybe RDNA 6. Yes, they will have that. However, you already have an install base with Xbox Next. And this time they will finally have the lineup to back it. They won't have the same thing like this gen, where they have the first 3 years up until the release of Starfield with only 2 major releases in Forza and Halo. Yeah, they won't have that next time. 26, 27, 28 will be fantastic years. Yeah, they will have an Elder Scrolls somewhere in that ballpark, 26, 27, 28, somewhere. Yeah, they will have the next Doom. They will have this and that. They have the games to back it up this time. And they have the head start. They don't have a direct competitor in Sony back then. They will be able to own the console market for 2 years. And whatever they can do in those 2 years might give them the head start, will give them finally the mind share of maybe some of the media outlets. Some will never change, but some might. It will draw in customers, and even like Sony fans that do look over there and say, man, and I have to wait at least 2 years till the next PlayStation comes out, and the games, the GTA 6s and so on, they look so much better on this version because you don't have the parity anymore. You don't have those. And I feel like this could make sense. We know from the leaked Xbox roadmap that they don't have the mid-gen upgrade planned. Yeah, they will bring out the Slim next year. Yeah, cool. But this Alexa-looking, Xbox Series X is basically a Slim. It does not have better hardware. It will have a little bit better Wi-Fi port, and it will have bigger SSD, but that's about it. Yeah, it's a Slim. It's not a mid-gen upgrade. And so, yeah, why not do that in 2026? It would make sense, in my opinion, because going head-to-head with Sony again in 2028 will do nothing for them. Nothing. So, I don't know. I've been going on for a while now.
Actually, I just want to say, did I not say this like the other week? That it would be better for them to just release the console early. It's just fuck off.
You might have.
Just ignore the Pro and just release the next gen. Just go straight for the next gen one. I think 2026. Yeah, it makes sense. Maybe it's a smidge early. It depends on how long this gen's got left in it. But even if you
listen, let's be realistic here. If Sony brings out the PS5 Pro in 24. They can carry that for another 4 years. It is highly, highly likely that the next gen starts.
I can't. The problem is, I think with Sony is I can't see them releasing the PS4 Pro next year when they haven't got anything to release it with.
See, I'm with you, but then we know that you don't have to have games to launch a console. Xbox has done it multiple times now. They launched the Series X without. This generation, they launched this generation without games. They launched the Xbox One X without games. You can do that. You can do that.
Doesn't often work in your favor though. The thing is with mid-gen refreshes, as you said, is from Sony's perspective, is it isn't for everybody. It's for the absolute hardcore, like your general consumer.
Like I said, the PS5 Pro will not bring in new customers. Yeah. Again, I place a bet.
But that's
at least
80% customers anyway. Like all of this, like this posturing for sales right now is just the already user base that you have upgrading from PS4 to PS5.
Yeah, it's not exactly.
New accounts.
Yeah, exactly. They are not growing the business. You are not growing the business. You don't bring in new customers. With the PS5 Pro, you will not bring over an Xbox Series X customer that does not have a PlayStation into the PlayStation ecosystem. The PS5 Pro will be for the already existing ones. Yeah. And that's the thing, and it's what Sony is doing right now as well. Yeah. I mean, they are literally head-to-head sales in lifetime sales of the PS4 Pro. Of the PlayStation 4. Yeah, in the first 3 years, the PS4 sold exactly the same amount of consoles than the PS5 does, which is still good. It's a good sale, but it's not growing. It's not growing the business.
But no, I think moving on to the next gen, and again, like you mentioned, then they'll have the PS5 Pro. Then the Xbox Next, whatever that is going to be called,
Yeah.
will release in potentially mid 26 or something like that, or late 26. Then you'll have, like you say, maybe a year later or the next year after, you'll get the next PlayStation, the PlayStation 6. And I think the console generations are just going to shorten. I think that's going to be Xbox saying we're not going to do mid-gen refreshes anymore. We're just going to shorten the life cycle of these. We're just going to go down. Instead of having an 8-year life cycle, we're just going to move with technology and just advance these products.
And do the 2 SKU release again and just do a 6-year console cycle. Why not?
Yeah, maybe even shorter. Listen, you never know.
The cross-gen goes on forever anyway. Yeah, look at this gen.
Exactly.
We had 2.5 years of cross-gen releases, so if you can't afford it, you don't have to upgrade immediately. Everything will be backwards compatible anyway, and you have that. And 6-year console cycles. We used to have that in the 90s. Remember? Like NES, Super Nintendo, and 64 generations. Yeah?
Yeah.
We didn't have 8 years. The first 8-year console generation was the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation. It was the first 8-year generation. You don't have to have those. Yeah. So, but sorry, I interrupted you, man.
No. I think that's what their plan will be going forward. I think they'll just ditch the whole. And I think Microsoft know it as well. This mid-gen refresh thing is nothing but a minor upgrade every time as well. It's not even notable. And the amount of investment that they put into these things versus the return on how many users actually buy mid-gen refreshes, you may as well just do an entirely new console that has a sizable upgrade in its performance. It's the same level of R&D that they'll be putting into it, but you'll have much more of an investment of this when you launch that next one. That's a substantial upgrade than you would if you're just going into it and you go, so what's the difference between the Xbox Series X and the Series XL? Well, we've got a slightly bigger hard drive. It's got a little faster processor, and it can do now a solid 60 frames on everything. Right.
Yeah.
So what does the Xbox Next do? Well, the Xbox Next is going to have 32 gig. It's going to be on a Zen 5. It's going to be on a RDNA 5 architecture. Like, the actual games we'll be able to support is significantly more. The actual level of detail we can put into these worlds is significantly more detailed. We're going to have so much more bandwidth there to play with compared to what we have now. Like, that is the level of jump that you need to see, because we're not going to go to 8K. 8K is a fallacy at the minute.
Yeah. That's not going to happen. No. We will actually get richer worlds. We will get richer worlds, more lifelike graphics, better lighting, better physics, and so on. That's what we want. But you actually need to keep up with technology to do that.
Yeah.
And so it totally makes sense to me. What do you think? What would be your guess? Are they going again for a 2 SKU approach?
I don't think they will. I don't think they will.
You don't think so?
Nah. I've got a funny feeling like they like the little man. Like, they like what the little man brought. But I don't know whether or not they would. I know they want everybody connected and they want a cheap way in. If they do another 2 SKU approach, then the second SKU at minimum needs to be on par with what the Series X is now. Like, in terms of its raw power.
Yeah.
Like, the mini baby SKU needs to be at minimum as powerful as the Series X is now. Like, basic. Obviously using RDNA 5 and all of that, but it needs to be like the baseline power needs to be on par with what the Series X is if they're going to do a second SKU. And then the more powerful big brother has a little bit much more bandwidth or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I also thought about this a little bit, and there's 2 ways to look at this. The one being, okay, the little man obviously is a success. They sold a lot of units of the little man.
And the price point's a massive success. Yeah.
So but then it also brought them some problems. They have 2 SKUs. Developers have to put in extra work to release games on Xbox because they have to optimize for 2 different hardware setups. That's definitely one thing. It didn't, like I mentioned earlier, it didn't do what they hoped it would do, like bring over the casuals. So I'm with you. I don't think that they are going to do the exact same thing again. What I could see them do, if they do a 2 SKU, the second SKU, it's not going to be a classic home console. It's more going into the handheld direction, maybe, or a hybrid console, similar approach to the Switch, because then you bring in actually a differentiation, and you will sell double. I don't have the Series S. I don't need it. I have the X. Yeah. Most people own one Xbox console. Yes, we have the die-hard fans. You have two, and I know a lot of people here in the chat have 3 Xboxes in their homes. I don't see the necessity for that. I you know what I mean. Most people don't see the necessity to have multiple Xboxes in their home. As diehards fans might do, but most people don't. But if you have hey, get the home console and you can play those games also on a portable system. There you go. And if you don't want to buy 2 consoles, you can still plug this one into the TV, and then you have obviously don't have the same power approach. But if they do another second 2 SKU approach, I would assume that the second SKU is not just the same like the Series S, weaker console, but it really is something else. Maybe entirely based on streaming, not with local, because we also heard the rumors that the next gen is going to leverage cloud a lot more. Yeah, maybe the next second SKU isn't really a second SKU, but it is a portable streaming device or something like that. I could see them do something like that. Yeah, but in terms of classic consoles, I also would assume that they are not going to do that again. Dave Ramos sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for the support, man. And he says, Series S was created for a reason. If Xbox moves away from #2 SKU, does that imply Series S didn't accomplish what Xbox wanted it to do?
I don't think so. I think it's accomplishing what they needed it to do because of its price bracket. The only reason for the second SKU was not to do with power or anything like that. It was just to provide accessibility to those who couldn't afford £500 on a console.
Exactly.
And still get them into the next gen. That was the only remit for this console. Okay, can we create something that's going to stay relatively on par with what we have, that doesn't have a 4K target? At most, it's got a 2K target, but even then, 1080p is really the benchmark. And everything else, I think I agree RAM is an issue in general. I've spoken about this many times. I think all consoles should be at base 32 gig. But outside of that, it does achieve what they set out to, and it's the lowest entry point to any generation of console that we've seen for a significant amount of time, if not ever. Like, I don't remember a time where you could go, especially in America, it's 150 for a Series S. with a game and or with Game Pass for 3 months. Like, that is obscene value. And I don't know why. And again, we've mentioned this before. That is compulsive buying territory. That's, look at that.
That's impulse
buying.
I might just buy this one. I don't consider the Series S a failure in any stretch of the means. Not even close. I
always say it as well as it's a good, especially for those who might not be able to invest in the Series X initially. It's a good starting point, like Stu. For instance, he started on the Series S because he couldn't really afford the Series X at launch. So he started on the Series S. He was like, "Is it worth it?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got a Series S, and it's absolutely worth a jump from a 1X to an S." But the jump from the 1X to an S was noticeable for a myriad of factors. Not resolution, of course, but you do have a significantly faster UI, significantly faster approach to games. You've got the quick resume, which works flawlessly.
You get the frames. You got all those things. I do agree. I do agree.
So, then, when you can afford to upgrade beyond the Series X to an X, then you can do that. But it means you can at least jump in. You can stay on par with everybody else when everybody's getting these next-gen games. You can still play them. And when you can afford to upgrade beyond that to the big boy,
yeah,
then you can do that. It's a good stepping stone console as well.
So I don't think the Series S is in any was a mistake or failure or anything, but I also think it didn't do what they wanted it to do. They wanted to get the casuals into the ecosystem. They wanted to, with the low entry price point into console gaming, they wanted to move customers over from PlayStation. And I don't talk about the diehard ponies. I talk about the casuals that play the FIFAs, that play the Fortnites, and the Call of Duties. They wanted to move them over. And I don't think that they have achieved that with the Series S. We don't know how this generation would have went without it. Yeah, would they have sold less units? We don't know that. But I don't think it did the big jump that they wanted it to be. Maybe it would have been if they would have had the lineup to back it up, because then it would have been like, okay, I do buy the Series S for the Xbox exclusives. Bring. A lot of people will still stay in the Sony ecosystem because that's where their games are, that's where their friends are. For whatever reason, they stay there. But it could have been like the exclusive machines. Okay, I do play the 2 or 3 exclusives that Xbox puts out a year, and they haven't done that in the first 3 years of this generation. Yeah. So you can look at this. We don't know how the situation would have been without it, but I don't think it did exactly what they wanted it to do. Doesn't mean it was a mistake, doesn't mean it was a failure. Jonas the Dad sends in a $5 super chat and says, great show. So first of all, thank you. How about Spider-Man 3 being split into 3 games at $50 a pop? PlayStation says $150 for a full game. How are ponies fine with that? Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something else coming out of this leak. Them talking, I haven't seen 150, but I've seen $100 price point for a game.
Yeah, they're talking about releasing instead of releasing AAA games, releasing like essentially Spider-Man 3 in 3 parts and selling it at $50 a pop. And that would make it more like 3 Miles Morales sized parts for Spider-Man 3, which would make Spider-Man 3 as a whole 150, like where we've seen on a bigger scale with Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Rebirth, and then whatever the third iteration is.
Yeah.
Instead of selling it as 1 game, they're making 3 games and then making a bigger chunk on it. However, with Final Fantasy, as we've seen, 7 Remake, Rebirth, etc. are substantial big games. These are like 60, 70, 80, 100-hour games, each one of them. Whereas they're more targeting, what Sony are targeting and potentially looking at doing is 3, like essentially for Spidey 3 Miles Morales size games as Spider-Man 3 and selling them separatly to make up 50 each. So in essence, you'd be paying 150 for the one game, but
full experience.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've only seen the $100 game thing that they talked about, and honestly, I was like, man, you just increased game prices. Game prices have always been at 70 euros here, and now when you started this gen, you increase it to 80, which is already a substantial increase. I get games are more expensive this day. We talked about that earlier, but there's also other ways to compensate for that. Yeah, like you talked a lot about, like microtransactions, subscription services, and so on. There are other ways to get your investment back. And $100 games, honestly, like that's, I don't know. Definitely something I don't want. But they are not the first one. They are not the first one to mention that. Rockstar also talked about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
Rockstar will do anything they can to milk money out of you. I mean, how many times have we bought GTA 5 for crying out loud?
yeah, that's the thing with Rockstar. It feels I would still not be a fan of $100 GTA 6. However, considering the scope and size of their game, and it's GTA, I would still buy it. Wouldn't be happy, but listen, I don't want developers to think, or publishers to think in that direction, to give us $100 games. If Sony would go through with that, honestly, you would lose the casual market. You definitely would. There will always be people out there paying $100 for certain games, for the next God of War or the next Last of Us. Yeah, there would be people, but honestly, if it's a lot of my friends in real life are casual gamers. Yeah, they play their FIFAs, their Call of Duties, and then they occasionally buy one of those blockbuster titles. And every time I talk to them, they say, "Man, why are you paying so much money for all those games? I buy basically everything that comes out. Some exceptions, but yeah, almost all the major releases I buy. But and I get always asked, man, how can you pay like €80 for the new Spider-Man? I'm not gonna buy that. I'm not. The casuals, you will lose them. With $100 price point or €100 price point, you would definitely lose the casuals. I don't think it's smart. You have to find other ways to increase your income. It's not the way to go to increase game prices to $100 games. Yeah.
Agreed.
So, where were we? Yeah, Xbox in 26, man. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I like it. I like the idea. Definitely. But Dutch, let us move on to another topic. I have not seen anyone talk about this, but actually, I think it's great news. I don't think it's the biggest news item, but I think it's great news. And that is about AMD's FSR3. It has been out for developers in the SKU for a while now, and there are builds now on PC that leverages it in games like Witcher 3, or games like Starfield. And it is a significant performance boost. We're talking here 40 to 70% better frame or better performance thanks to the FSR3 frame generation. We also know, has been confirmed, that games like Starfield will get the FSR3 patch. Immortals of Aveum will get it, and so on. FSR3 is out in the wild, and it does really, really well. Is this already still on par with DLSS? No, it's not. However, it is the best version of FSR there has ever been. The frame generation apparently works really, really well, and I wanted to hear your thoughts, man, on this. You excited for that? Do you think will we now finally see more console games use FSR? Because the weird thing about this is that a lot, and I mean really a lot, of PC games do support it, but barely any console game ever supports FSR. There are your exceptions that prove the rule, but you know what I mean. What do you think, FSR3? Will it be leveraged more on consoles, and will we see similar performance increases? You excited to finally play Starfield at 60?
No, I'm done with Starfield.
Yeah, but you won't be done when the DLC comes out.
Yeah, I'll jump back onto it then, depending on what I'm playing then. If Hellblade's out when the DLC comes out, it's got no chance.
Yeah.
But no, of course. It as long as the developers utilize it and we're actually getting more performance out of our consoles because of FSR3, then happy days. But it's whether or not it's utilized. This has been an issue all gen, to be fair. A lot of these technologies that are being provided by AMD haven't been utilized by a lot of the makers of these games. And
only on console. It's a totally different story on PC. And that's why I always wonder, you know, the developers have put in FSR2 a lot in PC games. And then they released the exact same game on consoles, and it's not in there. There has to be a reason for that. I don't know the reason, but there has to be one. And it's so weird to see, because especially consoles would benefit, and the games that do use it, they do benefit from that. And you finally can provide a performance mode, and you don't. And performance mode doesn't look. It doesn't look like Avatar right now in performance mode, which is a blurry mess in performance mode. Really tough to look at. So. And granted, it's a bad example because that's a game that actually uses it, but you know what I mean in general.
I mean, but it's got a reason to need to use it as well because of the just insane level of foliage and what's going on in that world. Like, I would hate to see what that game looks like if it didn't use FSR. It would be a mess. But no, I just think, of course, I always love the fact that we're getting advancements in these technologies, but until we see them actually taken advantage of in more games, then I'll hold my breath.
I mean, FSR3 in Starfield apparently brings between 40 to 70%, depending on the area, performance boost. Listen, man. That would bring us into territory where we can finally see a performance mode in Starfield, and I truly hope we will. It would be awesome, you know. We know that the DLC and or the add-on or whatever you want to call it will come out in next year and release the patch along with it. Then console owners finally can play it at 60 as an option. Thanks to FSR3, and people will come back to Starfield. I'm still booting it up from time to time. Still thoroughly enjoyed it. It's gonna be like Skyrim, that I play not permanently, but on a regular basis I boot it up, and I feel Starfield is going to be a very similar game for me. And I think having that option then in there, and a lot of people will come back for the add-on, would be a great combination. I don't know how you see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, a great combination. I like, especially on PC, how the kind of opened up FSR3 to be utilized regardless of what cards you can have. So you can use the technologies behind FSR3 even on NVIDIA, which is good. I mean, you'd obviously naturally float towards DLSS 3 if you're on NVIDIA, but if there's additional technologies that are built into FSR3 that can benefit you instead, then go for it. But no, it's great to see the advancements. I just like you say, console wise, we just need to see more developers and more studios taking advantage of it.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Let us move over to one more topic before we talk about the gaming year of 2023. Xbox announced just yesterday their new structure. Actually, after the acquisition of ABK, we knew that Bobby Kotick is going to leave. He confirmed his last day will be 29th this year. So one more week of Bobby, and then he is gone. But along with him, a lot of other executives of Activision Blizzard are leaving. They leave basically the studio heads and everyone that is directly involved in the game development process there. But a lot of executives in other sectors are leaving. Most prominently, Lulu. She has made a name of herself during the ABK trial. So she was really behind that with her spicy tweets and everything. She was really like one of the prominent ABK executives that commented on this whole merger, and I would not have expected her to leave, honestly. But of course, you can.
She's in a role though that isn't required anymore.
It's, required is relative because they didn't do the same thing with Bethesda ZeniMax. You could also say, okay, you can let go the HR head of HR over at Bethesda ZeniMax and send him out the way.
Yeah, they've got somebody else
marketing and communication. Pardon?
They've got somebody else in charge of Bethesda ZeniMax as well now.
Yeah, but it's 2 years after the acquisition. Simply because Pete Hines left. And it's not Bethesda, ZeniMax CEO. It's like Pete Hines was head of marketing and communications. But that's a natural leave, you know what I mean? And they are leaving, including Lulu, now because of the acquisition. So, and because of the restructuring that Microsoft does. So I wanted to hear your thoughts, man. You think that's a good idea? Not so good idea? Well, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, when it comes to executives, granted the executive teams have got their teams within it and everything as well. But when it comes to executives, like it's not something that ultimately affects the developer side all too much. So executive roles at the top end. Yeah, it's absolutely completely makes sense. You tend to find these reshuffles, especially when you need a big shake-up at the top anyway. Now, they all got the big golden parachutes, which is why they're not overly displeased. Lulu is a little bit more fun to speak of, and she did a great job kind of battling things and stuff throughout the merger agreement. But beyond that, she was chief commercial officer.
Chief communication officer.
Yeah, sorry, chief communications officer.
Yeah.
When you're jumping into Microsoft, they've got their own chief communications officer. They don't need a specific one for Bethesda ZeniMax. For ABK anymore. They don't need their own.
Yeah, but again, this is very different than the way they've handled it with Bethesda. Again, you have these overhead departments. Yeah, HR, marketing, communications, finance.
Yeah.
And so on. You have these overhead departments that are not directly in the role of actually developing your product. And still, they kept it intact with Bethesda. They don't keep it intact with ABK. I think that shows you that they consider this acquisition to be something very, very different. This was with Bethesda, they had a great relationship with Bethesda, and they acquired them because they wanted to achieve together different things. Activision Blizzard is a company that is struggling with their way of management. Obviously, they have all the lawsuits going on with harassment and everything. You know the story, yeah. So. Activision Blizzard has a culture problem. Yeah, Microsoft keeping the top management intact and leave things as is would make it way harder to do that cultural change. And I think that's definitely one of their intentions. They didn't feel the necessity to do that with Bethesda ZeniMax. Yeah, there was a intact company. Cultures were similar to what Microsoft expects to have, and this is very different with ABK. With Bethesda, we also have seen that they let Bethesda run things very independently for a long time. They didn't have the Xbox showcase; they had the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. They had their own publishing department, they had their own marketing department, and so on. And I feel like this is another factor that they might want to do different this time. They want people to know ABK is now Xbox. They didn't try to provide that message in the first 2 years after the acquisition of Bethesda. Bethesda was still Bethesda, but with Activision, it feels different. Yeah, and I think there are multiple reasons for that. One being the culture thing, the other being they want to implement that organization way more quicker and be one organization. Because I don't think that it benefited Microsoft or Xbox that much to do it this way with Bethesda. Keep it that separate. For multiple reasons. I mean, yes, we honor the existing contracts, but it is a weird thing that Bethesda released 2 PlayStation exclusive games, timed exclusive games, before they released a single game on Xbox. I also don't think that the communication, hey, this is still an independent company, helped Microsoft to gain mindshare. I also don't think that things like Redfall helped, you know. And the first time where we've seen a more unified Bethesda and Microsoft organization is with the launch of Starfield. But yeah, I don't think they want to do that with ABK. Also, another factor is this is now a massive organization. Yeah, Xbox doubled overnight their employee staff. They had Bethesda and Xbox were about 10,000 employees, and ABK also is another 10,000 employees. So they doubled in size, and you can tell if you look at the hierarchies diagram, what's it called? Organigram? I don't know. Is that an English word?
Yeah.
That's what we call it in German. You see now there are a lot of other executives that have a lot of power there. Obviously Sarah Bond, but also if you look at Matt Booty, now Mike Ibarra is reporting to Matt Booty. You know what I mean? Like things like that.
Matt Booty is now in charge of ABK.
Everything. He's in charge of Bethesda Studios. He's in charge of Xbox Studios. He's in charge of ABK. Like a powerful man within the Xbox organization, and I think that shows you that Xbox is not trying to do this. Okay, we own them now, but they are still their own company. They're moving away from that. I don't know. That's just the feeling I'm getting. I don't know how you see it, man.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think they're going to make sure that whatever next showcase we have will ultimately just be an Xbox showcase, and you'll see the Activision games, and you'll see the Bethesda games, but it won't be an
see
Xbox
King games. We
Yeah.
will see it during the next Xbox showcase, a King game, a mobile game.
Yeah, it's going to be mad. It's going to. I don't know how this next showcase is going to be rammed.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
It's because it's so many titles that are in development across all of these studios now. Like, how do you even think about what goes into this next showcase? It's a great problem to have, but it's also like it's for us. We'll be like, oh, we really want to see this studio show something. There's no guarantees that they'll decide to put that studio's work on show on that one, because there's a myriad of studios they could show that might be a little bit further along. It's not that game isn't in development or isn't being produced. It's just that they're going, nah, we'll show these ones this time, and the next showcase we'll show these ones.
Yeah. Again, I also believe that in 24 we will see more developer directs like the ones we had in January. Yes, this year Xbox had also multiple developer directs, but let's face it, they only had one. That was the one in January, because the developer direct directly after the Xbox showcase. Man, come on, this was just like second half time of the Xbox showcase. It wasn't a dedicated developer direct with what they had with Starfield. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they had the indie showcase in September or October, or when it was, which was an awesome show, but it wasn't a developer direct. So, but I feel
third party showcase, third party partner showcase.
Absolutely, and I feel like we will see. The one in January was a massive success for them. Granted, the big thing was because it had this surprise with Hi-Fi Rush, and they just launched that game, Shadow dropped it. Don't know if the one in I expect definitely one in January. I don't think we will get another Shadow drop like a Hi-Fi Rush, but what we will see in that is the first games coming to Game Pass from ABK. That is the quote-unquote Shadow drop then in January. But it makes sense because there will be Xbox games coming out before the big Xbox showcase. Probably Towerborn, probably Hellblade, definitely Stalker. That was already confirmed for Q1. So it makes sense to do that developer direct again in January and get people hyped for 2024. And with ABK and like you said, the June showcase just doesn't seem enough anymore. There's just too much stuff in the works that it doesn't do. You can't put all of that in June. It's just not gonna happen. Yeah. But yeah, man, we are already more than 2 hours. 2 hours and 11 minutes into this show. And actually, we wanted to talk a little bit about, because it's the end of the year. It's the last podcast of this year for us. We will be back on January 4th, but we won't have a show next week. We're gonna take a Christmas break, and I think it's definitely the time when we should reminisce a little bit about the gaming year 2023. Listen, this year is probably going to go down as one of the best, if not the best, year in video games. And I have to change the gameplay again. It's always when I can't multitask, man. I just can't.
Yeah.
I don't know how other podcasts,
especially if like us, you're fortunate enough to be a gamer on all platforms. Then this year was just insane.
Yeah, it was definitely. So there we go. Gameplay is changed. I ran out of footage that I haven't shown from Avatar, so now it's Age of Empires time, man. But yeah, let us talk a little bit about this year, because games-wise, it was like one of the best years ever. The only year that is up for debate is whether 2007 was the best year or this year. But this just shows you how good of a year that was. We had massive games, from, of course, Baldur's Gate to Diablo to Hogwarts to Star Wars to Starfield to Forza to Alan Wake to it. We had like every month this year, like major AAA games coming out. Spider-Man, of course. We talked about that earlier, and Final Fantasy 16 and all those amazing games, Zelda and Mario Wonders, and it was an insanely good year for video games. What I wanted to do with you, man, is you talked about a lot of great games that came out this year on your show the other day. What I wanted to do with you, I put down a list from January to December about like the biggest highlights, what happened, not just in terms of game releases, but what were the things we talked about, in the industry, where were the major news bits through this year. And I wanted to use the rest of the show with you, and of course with our awesome community, to just go through the year from January to December to talk about some of the news and what happened this year. Before we all go into the Christmas break. One quick thing before we start. Shout out to our awesome community. I feel so incredibly honored that so many people come here every week and to lend us their ears and listen to what we have to say about gaming. So shout out to you. And if you do enjoy the show, let us know by liking. Hit the like button. It would be absolutely awesome. So thank you guys. And that's January. January, we didn't get that many news. The biggest news was arguably the FTC suit Microsoft over ABK for the first time. They're still suing, if I'm not mistaken. But that was the first time. And who would have thought in January 2022 they announced ABK, and a year later we were still battling regulators, and this went on through almost the entire year. But up until October. But that was the first time they sued it, and out of this trial we got, of course, a lot of news. Now in hindsight, man, it was almost a year ago. We learned so much about all these court trials. What did you think of this, man?
I was just ready to just put my head through a window at that point, like, especially when we got midway through the year. But Jesus, I got sick of talking about the takeover, and I think everybody did by the midway point. And before they got through that, everyone was
we all grew tired. But I thought that especially this FTC trial actually made it interesting again, because that's when we got all the releases. We got the info,
game info and things like that, which was interesting. If it wasn't for that, oh god.
oh yeah, indeed. Of course, the other thing that happened in January was the Developer Direct. We just mentioned that. Didn't hear your thoughts. Do you think we will get one in January again?
Yeah. We've got, especially the games that we already know are coming in 2024, we'd expect to hear from them on their rollout, official dates and things like that, and the Developer Direct. So I would likely see Hellblade in there, potentially Towerborn. I don't know whether or not we might see Avowed, or whether or not they'll leave Avowed, because
I don't think so. I think Avowed,
that might just be the showcase.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the showcase in June. It depends on which one comes first. Again, we kind of think right now Hellblade seems like it's going to be the first, but anything can happen. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. That's true.
So, but either one of those will be shown off, and you'll get the release date for it. But we're thinking it's probably likely to be Hellblade, Towerborn. Maybe there's a couple of other games in there that were, like you say, from ABK or something like that, or Bethesda showing something off that we know of. But definitely, I think we'll back into January we'll have another one. Yeah,
true. So let's move to February. In February, we heard for the first time that is completely playable.
Yes,
that was as early as February 2023. And I still see a lot of people speculating, hey, if it was already playable in 23, and basically that's when the polishing up phase and bringing everything together, getting pacing right, getting side stuff right, getting all that things right. Could it be that this is one of the big games for 24, Holiday 24? Who knows? Still. On the sad side of things, in February, and we've seen this across the entire year, a big wave of layoffs started. It started with Take-Two as the most prominent publisher that announced major layoffs across the board. We've seen it through the entire year, from Xbox to PlayStation to almost every studio. Not almost every, but a lot of studios got hit with layoffs, and it all started in February. What do you think? What's the reason for that big wave of layoffs that we've seen across the industry throughout 2023?
Generic rise in development costs. I think it's primarily one.
Think so?
Just generically rising. Overall, another aspect we have to think of in here is just generalized in usually major industry, or big, not just big tech, but just in large form industry anyway, is when you have something like rapid growth, you invest so much into getting new staff in X, Y, and Z, and then you downgrade. It's not like Take-Two, etc., aren't shy of money because they've got plenty and they earn fortunes. But it's rapid growth. We've seen the same with a few others this year, and we'll get into those as the months roll by. But a lot of it's down to just rapid growth in certain areas, and then shaving out the ones that aren't performing or the ones that aren't classed as necessary in order to continue. It's horrible, but
it definitely is horrible. As good as 23 was for video games, for the industry, it wasn't. And I think it has something to do with what you just mentioned. It is a rapid growth problem that came out of the pandemic. I think that is a fallout that we see from what happened with the pandemic in 2020 when everyone stayed at home, was locked into their houses. Gaming just got a massive boost, and they were hiring like crazy because there was a demand for it. And now we started in 2022, going back to normal, people going back to the offices, people don't have that much time for gaming anymore. And I think that a lot of the things we've seen, is they hired like crazy in 2020 and 2021, and then the demand just fell off. And it pains me to see so many people lose the job across the industry I love. But I think that could be one of the things. In February, also Hogwarts released, and along with it, of course, a big discourse. We've seen that through the entire year up until the Game Awards. The best-selling game of the year, not nominated in any category whatsoever because of that discourse. And then we moved into March. And you know what we got in March, finally? The release date for Starfield. And it was... Yay! And it was clear that Microsoft didn't keep their promise. Because they wanted to release it in the first half, along with Redfall and Forza. We're all supposed to be first half of 2023 releases. And it was clear now that Forza and especially Starfield will not be able to make that date. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad Bethesda got the time they needed to bring out the game in the way they did, because it was the best, most polished Bethesda release we've ever had. But of course, it brought up concerns about mismanagement. Can Xbox not handle their studios? They can't release. We came off of the arguably worst year Xbox has ever had in 2022, without any game releases, other than super small ones like Pentiment. But that was definitely a talking point. You think it was it a justified concern back in the time, or what do you think?
No, I don't. I mean, at the time, we have rightful concerns initially. We have rightful concerns initially, but I don't think. I mean, if we can have a look at things in retrospect, no, I don't think we should have been concerned then. But again, we don't have hindsight, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Also in March, we heard for the first time the rumor of the PS5 Pro. Tom Henderson broke that. And we played the Diablo beta.
Yes, we did. Yeah, put many hours into the beta.
Oh, yeah. Many hours. 2 entire weekends. And it was phenomenal. And we got the Redfall previews. And everyone was hyping it up. Influencers, media sites that got to go to a certain event They all said, "Oh yeah, that is going to be a massive game. That's going to be an awesome game." Obviously, it was completely something else.
Yeah.
What do you think, man? What happened there? Now that we look back at this,
It's the same thing that's been happening quite a bit. People are too afraid to speak out in case they get blacklisted from getting support by a specific company that they represent or that they report on. I think integrity stands above all else, and I think developers will tell you that themselves as well. If you're honest about it, then be honest about it. Like, don't come out of there and just blow smoke up their arse, because that doesn't help anybody, including the developers. And ultimately, that's what we got when Redfall released. Was not what was originally hyped up to be. So that's what I took out of it anyway, and it seemed to be across the board. It was just a lot of smoke blown up rear ends, and it shouldn't be like that. But we've seen that even recently, even to this week. It's just that's a problem with the media that they need to solve. Is they need to stop being scared of losing their ability to cover games, but just do what ACG does, because ACG buys every game he reviews. Buys every one of them.
True. Yeah, I don't know what happened there with these previews. Could be two things. You know, they all played on PC. They played a certain vertical slice, but then the signs were there. It was just what it was. So let's move over to April, man. In April, Ubisoft Plus finally launched on Xbox, which I haven't subscribed to. I'm still.
No, I haven't either.
I'm still.
I've seen a few people that use it to try a game out. Like, I've seen specifically with Avatar, people are like, I'm going to subscribe for a month to try Avatar, because a lot of people keep raving about how beautiful it is or how good it is and things like that. But they're not willing to dive into paying X amount, even though it is now heavily discounted already.
It is.
Not willing to jump into it. But I would advise most people, like, take that leap and jump in, even if you are getting Ubisoft Plus, or I'd recommend just buying the game. It's a great game.
True that.
But yeah, it's one of them things where there might be a point in time where I subscribe for a month to play a game, but ultimately it's not something I would long term.
I have no long term, definitely not. There are just not enough Ubisoft games coming out to justify that. I was also heavily debating whether to subscribe for a month or two to play Avatar. Would be the cheaper alternative, but I know me, once I'm subscribed to something, it's like with my gym membership, you know.
You just forget about it.
I forget about it, and then I keep it there to, you know, in the background. I'm subscribed to the gym, and I go twice a year, and that's it. And I don't know. It's not smart. It's not the smart thing to do, you know what I mean? So I just bought Avatar, even though it's not really smart, but it's great to have the option there. In April, also Microsoft signed all these 10-year deals. That was in April for Call of Duty. And then we got the details for the Asus ROG Ally, which...
We did.
Yeah, which is the best hardware release we got this year, for sure. It came out then in June. And I bought it. I love it. It's a great handheld. Plays it. The games really run really well on this device. I'm still like in love with it. It has its issues, and the main issue with it is that it runs Windows, and all the update shit you have to go through that comes along with Windows. But it is a great device. Once you get to play after installing BIOS updates and Windows updates and driver updates and Armory Crate updates, it is a super phenomenal handheld. My my thing with it is really I love it that much that I have now the third party problem. I put up a tweet actually a couple of days ago about that, and Windows Central, I feel very honored, picked this tweet up and wrote an article about it. Shout out to them and thank you for for quoting me there. It's where do I buy my third parties now? I'm a console gamer. I do have a good PC here. Yeah, I have a 3080 there. It's not. I could upgrade to the 4080, but it's still a very, very good PC. Runs games very, very well. It's obviously a lot more powerful than the Xbox or PS5. But I do prefer to game on console. I'm just a console gamer, and that's why I buy all my third-party games on console, on Xbox. But the handheld runs Windows, and so if a game is not in Game Pass, I have to double dip. If I want to play Avatar on my Ally, I have to double dip. If I want to play Baldur's Gate on both devices, I have to double dip. Diablo, I actually did double dip with Diablo, and so on. It's like, where do I buy my third-party games now? It is, but it's my problem. Let's move over to May. Redfall came out.
So what happened in June? Can we just skip that? Redfall came out.
Redfall came out in the same week the CMA blocked the deal.
Yeah.
And we got that big Phil Spencer interview where you could really tell he was down. Redfall got a very bad reception. People didn't like it. It didn't run well. And at the same time, the acquisition that they fought almost 1.5 years for got blocked by the CMA. It was very unclear how the EU will rule in it. We knew in the US, the FTC is still battling it. It didn't look good for Xbox. They didn't have any major releases for almost 1.5 years in between Halo and Redfall, and then Redfall comes out this way. The acquisition was uncertain. He was down. Looking back at it, everything turned out well. Starfield was a success, Forza was a success, and they finally got the deal through. But yeah, May was definitely not a good month. What do you remember of this, man?
Yeah, it wasn't a great month. It wasn't a great month at all. It's the block thing. We could it wasn't that we could see it coming, but we knew Microsoft were going to fight it, so it wasn't really anything that I was bothered about on that front. But I was bothered about the fact that Redfall was just terrible, boring, underperformed, didn't load textures in.
It did not.
It just wasn't a great release, and I was after everything that they'd hyped and they'd shown off about the game. It was just I just felt let down. Ultimately, I was looking forward to the game. It wasn't even a game that was on my horizon as something to look forward to. But the way that they showed and presented the game, it then got my interest. And to release in the manner that it did, that's my biggest disappointment of this year, by a long shot. By a couldn't tell. I was told it was something that it wasn't.
True. So then we got to June. And you know what happens in June. Showcases. We got the Xbox showcase, we got the Summer Game Fest. We got all the showcases. Granted, the PlayStation showcase was end of May. Like 10 days or so before the Xbox showcase.
Yeah.
And obviously Microsoft and Sony handled their showcases very differently.
Mm-hmm.
Sony didn't have a showcase in 2022. It was the first showcase in 2 years that they had, like outside of these little state of plays, but first proper Sony showcase, and it was a complete miss. Not even PlayStation fans really liked it.
No.
Always.
Let's all remember the fact that they put movie trailers in there.
Yeah. We had Badbit, Mr. Badbit, who obviously is a great friend of ours and a PlayStation-centric creator. The Trophy Room is doing insanely well. Like second highest PlayStation podcast on the Apple Podcast, yeah. We had him on this show, and he was like, what did they do? What did they do with this showcase? Like, they've shown a bunch of games as a service titles that nobody cared about. No announcement that stuck out. None of the games they've shown were the games that people wanted to see. We wanted to see what is Naughty Dog working on. What's the next game from Santa Monica or Bend or any of those studios. We didn't see any of those. We got Foam Stars. We got Helldivers. Gas. And none of them stood out. None of them look exciting. And then we had the Xbox showcase, which was a really, really great showcase. They showed Fable. They showed Hellblade. They showed Avowed. They announced South of Midnight. They announced and shown Clockwork.
Clockwork.
Yeah, I always want to say Clockwork Orange, bro. I
Clockwork
don't know.
Orange.
They showed Clockwork Orange and and many other great-looking games. They ended the show obviously with a 40-minute plus Starfield developer direct, and Starfield looked phenomenal. It was Xbox fans got their treat. Everyone was excited.
Just really, I mean, I loved the backlash that Fable got in a good way, because everyone was like, "There's no chance that's gameplay," and all the developers were on Twitter going, "It's gameplay, it's gameplay." I'm sorry you don't believe it, but that is actual gameplay. That's on Xbox. Like, even they came out and said, "No, that's playing on a Series X. That is Xbox footage. That is Fable." They're like, "No, can't be." Yeah. No, it is.
Even Phil in the I think it was the Giant Bomb interview. Got asked like, so, why didn't you show it with gameplay? You sure it wasn't gameplay? It was like, yeah. So what did you think about the showcases this year? And
so Sony's showcase was just absolutely abysmal. Like, again, for a company that hasn't had a first-party showcase in 2 years, to come out with that was just horrific.
Yeah.
And then they announced the Buds for the first time, and they announced the Portal for the first time.
Oh, right. This was during this showcase, yeah.
And then they had like the little Spider-Man segment at the end, but that wasn't the worst of that, because we had another showcase not too long after that also showed Spider-Man, but had the release date.
Yeah, it was Summer Game Fest.
Showcase.
They did that at the Keighley thing.
Yeah, the Keighley show. And also, another to rub more salt into the wounds, they also didn't have the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer or release date, because that was also with Keighley. So it was so baffling to see Sony go from this powerhouse who does these massive presentations that were absolutely like get people excited for their first-party studios, to showing a bunch of generic multiplayer foam stars, like we said, which is just like their rip-off version of Nintendo's Splatoon.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of games as a service games that don't stand out the crowd at all. Now we know a lot of them have been cancelled or put on or canned or pushed to the side or severely downgraded. So whatever we've seen there a lot of it probably won't see, or when we do see it, it won't be what it was meant to be in the first place. And then nothing else was shown. Then we had Spidey, and we've had Spidey already.
Yeah.
So we've still got nothing going forward.
Yeah.
It was an abysmal show. Like, I don't know. Again, this is the start of us going, there's something seriously not right with Sony right now. Seriously not right. Like, that was abysmal. And then,
absolutely,
like I say, salt into the wound again, not having your own release dates for your own games on your show, but then shoving a Gran Turismo movie trailer in there as well was just, God, who come up with that idea? Then the complete opposite side of the scale, Xbox's showcase was phenomenal. It was just game after game after game after game after game after game, big hit after big hit. We were like, "Oh, who's this? Oh, Compulsion's new game! Woohoo! Oh, who's this? Oh, it's their new game. Oh, awesome! Right, okay. So who's this? Oh, it's Fable. Woohoo! Okay, right. Who's this? Okay, it's It was just one after another after another. And this was exactly what we wanted to see from them. It was a phenomenal thing, and it just got us more enticed. And then for us, we were like, "Oh, we're going to Gamescom soon. We're going to get to play this. We're going to do this." And it was just the excitement just really built up from there. So it was just the start. It showed the two contrasting differences between two companies. One that's struggling to find its identity right now beyond what it already does, and it doesn't have the games in order to push out that initial identity. And then the other, who's trying to force itself into a cadence. Okay, right, let's show them what we've got cooking. Let's show them everything that's in the works. Let's show them stuff that's... And even to them, they're saying this is the nearest stuff. This isn't all of it. We've still got loads left that we haven't shown yet. This is just the nearest stuff that we can show.
True. It really showed the difference in between the two companies right now. There's a certain disconnect on the Sony side of things. No clear roadmap, no good messaging, not catering to what the fans want to see. And then you have Xbox that, granted, up until the release of Starfield, they had their issues. We talked about this many times, but they have this vision where they want to go. They have the roadmap. We know about all those great games that are coming, and they are connecting to the fans. They did the developer direct, they did the June showcase, a little later in the year the indie showcase, they did big presentations at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show and
party game showcase,
and it is just what it is.
Then later on in the year, of course, we know, which we'll get to, but the Game Awards, we saw multiple titles again.
Yeah, exactly. So let us move forward to July. In July, things in the ABK acquisition started to look a little brighter for Microsoft again. Xbox won the FTC case. There was this glimpse. If they would have lost that case, the thing would have been over. But the EU had approved the deal. The FTC deal was won, and now the only roadblock in the way was the CMA. So big steps forwards there. Microsoft also had a loss. Major Nelson left Microsoft in July. Exactly, and we got a big presentation from Star Wars Outlaws with a lot of details in July. Then we moved over to August, arguably the game of the year. Baldur's Gate 3 released, and it took over the mindshare in the gaming community like crazy. Nobody had Baldur's Gate on their radar. A CRPG, turn-based game like that being so massively successful took everyone by surprise. But then for us, of course, the big highlight in August was Gamescom. We've been there. We've covered it, of course, here on the podcast a lot. We even did a live podcast in the same room from the hotel. A drunken live podcast. That was an incredible experience. Actually, John from Xbox Era messaged me today. We have to start planning our next year trip, and we most certainly will have to do that. Gamescom was an insane experience. I still look back at this. It was absolutely awesome, of course, with you and all the others that we met, Gas and John and everyone. It was Jess Gordon, and we had such a great time.
Couldn't have asked for better weather or anything. It was beautiful weather all week, apart from a couple of rain showers. Great food, great company, great friends, great games. Like we couldn't have asked for a better time, really.
No, really not. Xbox had the biggest booth they've ever had. Unfortunately, Sony was a no-show at Gamescom. But also the other booths were absolutely awesome. The Nintendo booth was great. There were a couple of great booths. But the Xbox booth for us definitely was like front and center. It was the hub where everyone met, where the social gathering happened, and that just shows you what Xbox does for the community. Like literally, the Xbox booth was the hub. Whenever we had people want to meet up, where do we meet? In front of the Xbox booth. It was like just like the meeting point. And I don't know, what do you remember from Gamescom, man?
Oh, I remember all of it, and I remember the great food, like I say, the great company, the laughs, running to opening night live, and then them not having drinks on, and being raging that we were all sitting there just desperate for a drink, and all the way through opening night live, and but then just a great time throughout. Like I say, it's just the fact that we got the gorgeous weather to go with it. And then we had great like meals out with each other and had a laugh that way, and it was just brilliant. Just thoroughly enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to do it again this year. Or next year.
Agree. So let us move over to September. In September, we got the news that Jim Ryan is stepping down. And of course, with that, we had the big discussion, or the continued discussion. What's going on over there at PlayStation? We had the discussion earlier in this show again. But this, they still have not announced a successor for him. Just the intermediate guy that will take over until May in 24. Your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, his strategy wasn't working. His strategy was to make money, and they're still making money, but they're not making any more than they did before.
Yeah.
That's in retrospect. And if anything, they now lack direction. So he hasn't been a good thing for the company. And it's about time that they found somebody else that did have that direction that they need. But I don't think Sony hierarchy know what direction they want to go in, and I don't think they know who to get in place to get them where they want to be.
Yeah, that is true. So the bad news for Sony continued, and then in October, Connie Booth and other major executives left the company. But also in October, we got some cool announcements, like the Max Payne remake, and we had the Xbox Indie Showcase there, which was really, really cool. And finally, Dutch, after excruciating 1 year and 9 months, it was finally over. Activision Blizzard is now part of Microsoft.
Woo! I was just more relieved that we didn't have to talk about after that point. We could cover the fact that it was finished, it was done, and we didn't have to talk about it anymore. And I was like, yes, we can just get back to talking about video games.
Indeed. I mean, the ABK merger is still or they are still in the process of including them. We talked about the restructuring earlier a little bit. Us gamers still have not seen like any benefits. No games have come yet to Game Pass, but that will start really soon, probably January.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's finally over. It's a big step for Microsoft after a long, painful acquisition process. But yeah, that was October. And then in November, we had BlizzCon. Nothing really major at least for console gamers came out of that. But it was a great BlizzCon. BlizzCon was back for the Blizzard fans. They had Overwatch there. World of Warcraft was big there.
Massive there. Actually, they announced 3 new expansions for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Major expansions.
Yeah. And apparently they're really good. Yeah. If our good friend Jess is like absolutely loving what they've done to World of Warcraft. Yeah. Then we had the whole Bungie thing happening, the layoffs there, and the big discussion for a long time was the Game of the Year nominees. And with it, obviously, we got the discussion of the Xbox tax.
Okay. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Nope.
Right. You want to end this show soon? I see.
I still don't agree with the Xbox tax as a concept. What I do agree with is natural human bias towards a favorite thing, and it's not a bad. The problem isn't the fact that a person has a bias or a person working for a company has a bias towards their preferred platform, because everyone has a preference, regardless of what position you're in. If you're talking to a certain person, they've got a preference on the type of games that they play, they've got a preference on the platform that they play it on, and ultimately, even if they play on everything, they still have a preference on which is what they prefer. And ultimately, media personalities, content creators, etc., will always have their own biases. No matter how neutral they pretend to be, they will always have a bias towards a certain platform that they enjoy the most. Regardless of how good or bad that platform is, they will still have a bias towards them. So ultimately, the issue is because the vast majority, as we know as gamers anyway, the vast majority of the general public know what PlayStation is. They grow up on PlayStation. They have a generic favoritism towards PlayStation because it is that iconic name in the industry. The vast majority of people that work at these, when you think of like 9 times out of 10, the vast majority of them would have grown up or started on PlayStation going into the industry. So they'll have a natural bias towards a platform that they prefer, that they've grew up on and played. So when they're covering topics on PlayStation, they're going to have a natural bias towards it. There isn't an overall tax as in they specifically hate Xbox, but their favoritism does leak out in some of the articles that they produce. Unintentionally. There are some bad eggs in the industry that have intentional biases towards Xbox because they hate them for different reasons. But ultimately, in my opinion anyway, the bias is primarily just down to a subconscious thing. It's just a preferred platform that they do, and unfortunately does leak out in some of the articles that they produce from time to time. And that up until and includes people who host shows that we know of. Mr. Keeley, who has a definite bias towards PlayStation. That's fine, you can have that bias. But I think as media across the board, they need to do better, regardless of what platform they're covering, to be unbiased in their approach to reporting. They cannot say, but Xbox, but Xbox. But ultimately, unfortunately, it's all about the clicks. For a lot of these sites, they're driven by clicks, which means that the feisty headlines, the derogatory headlines about other platforms are what gets them money. So, which is why myself and boxy, and other people tend to stick to people like Seasoned Gaming or ACG or Ironlords.net or people like that for our actual information, because they are unbiased in their approach, but they're also just essentially, this is the news, we're reporting it, we're not going to put out feisty headlines to go across it. This is exactly how it is, no feistiness.
See, I only agree with parts of this.
Okay.
I think it's a lot of the things you said are definitely there. There's the subconsciousness. People grew up with Nintendo or PlayStation. They didn't grow up with Xbox. You lean towards certain preferences, which is fine. And that definitely plays a part in this. Like we do. We don't pretend to be like unbiased. I have a clear preference. My preference is Xbox. I do like PlayStation. I grew also up with PlayStation and Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I have all the consoles, and I do enjoy all of them for different reasons. But if I get to choose, where do I buy a certain third-party game? I buy it on Xbox because I prefer the ecosystem, the platform. It offers me more. It's like, yeah, I don't pretend that. And that's like everyone has their preferences. Like you said, it's obviously also obvious with Keighley and everything. I do think there is something like the Xbox tax out there. And that is simply for the last point you brought up. And that is the fact why this Xbox tax exists. Because at the very end of the day, every media outlet makes their money off of clicks and views and whatnot. And what generates you clicks? Two things. You write articles in favor of the platform that is the market leader. There are simply more PlayStation fans out there than Xbox fans. That's just a fact. So obviously that draws that in. Then you also have the console warriors out there, which is, there are way too many of them. And feisty headlines like clickbait articles, they just work. And they have worked for a long time if they are negative about Xbox. And the media sites know that. If you write an article with a headline that says something like Starfield is the best Bethesda game that has been released, or the best polished Xbox or best polished Bethesda game in years, you're not getting any clicks. You will get the clicks. This is what Starfield should have been. Yeah, or something like that. So yeah, it does exist. There is, and it's not just one or two media outlets. We've seen it with the likes of Kotaku and IGN and so on. There is an Xbox tax out there, and I also don't believe anymore in like it's just down to personal preferences of certain editors. There is a structural thing going on. If you look at outlets like IGN that do forget to put in logos on a regular basis, if you do look at the way how criticism is reported, when you look at like no articles were written about the bugs that Spider-Man had. Yeah. There are no doom and gloom articles about everything that is going on right now over there at Sony. And there's plenty of things you could write articles. I'm concerned about PlayStation. And I don't say that for the clicks. I don't put that in the in the headlines or the thumbnails. But I can say it on this show. I am concerned right now. I don't think that they are prepared for the future really well. Of course, there will be eventually great games coming from the Naughty Dogs and Bends and Santa Monica's and so on. But I don't want to have 2 great years of PlayStation games at the end of this gen. I want them to continue that great lineup that they had during the PS4 generation, where they had 2 or 3 bangers each year. And I don't get that. I don't get a clear vision. I don't feel valued as a customer anymore. we see all the executives leaving. I do have these concerns. You could write the exact same articles, and you don't see none of them, and you don't see it from bigger outlets. You don't see it from any influencers in the wider gaming space. It's yes, there are the Xbox diehard fans that do those, but you know what I mean. You see a very different way of reporting on things when it comes to Xbox or PlayStation and Nintendo, for that matter. And so yeah, I do think that the Xbox tax exists, and it is an issue. It is an issue for Microsoft, especially in the combination with them lacking in marketing. Yeah. I also don't think anymore that this has nothing to do with Sony doing certain things. We know that the blacklisting is real. We know that Sony gives certain previews to certain outlets that tend to do certain things and write certain articles. And of course, if you are an IGN, you are afraid to lose the preview rights of the next God of War. Yeah, and you think twice about. I don't think that Sony is actively handing money over to IGN to write certain articles. I don't think that that's the case. But I do think that there are certain ways in pressurizing certain outlets to write your articles in a certain way, and that definitely shows. If IGN would have come out and wrote, man, Spider-Man broken, definitely needs patching, this and that, they would have a problem when it comes to the next exclusive, like, big preview of the next game. They would simply would, and they know that. And that's a very different way in how Microsoft handles it. Nobody over at Microsoft is not handing out any previews anymore to IGN simply because they didn't like Redfall and wrote all these articles about how bad Redfall is and how much of in a trouble Xbox is. Yeah, Microsoft is still giving them the previews, but Sony handles these kind of things differently. And so yes, there is an Xbox tax out there. And it is a culmination of all those things, yeah? It's personal preference, it's clicks, yeah? Simply PlayStation being the bigger platform, it's clicks. It is a way that has worked for the media industry for many years. There's no reason to change that, and so on. So yeah, I do believe in the Xbox tax.
Okay. Like I say, I believe in the culmination of those things. I just don't believe it's ultimately a tax. I think these companies thrive on bad news because bad news is clicks, ultimately, and they
the difference is there are not that many bad news about Xbox.
They do that on the least favorite platform, which is what they want to do. Obviously, they're not going to target the industry darlings. Of course, they're not, because as you've said, the industry darlings don't get them the clicks that they want. Even if they reported bad news on Spider-Man 2, etc., it wouldn't get them the clicks that bad news on Xbox gets them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why they revert to it. So I think it's just like I say, the industry needs a shake-up, but ultimately money talks, and the clicks are doing the talking. So I think it's in Xbox's favor to just give them less and less reasons to write these ridiculous articles, and I think in time they will have less and less reasons to write these articles.
I wish that would be true. But we know Microsoft has this habit to shoot themselves in the foot. And the media industry will always try to pick that up. Yeah. Let me give you one example. I can already see the headlines. If this early start of the next gen in 26 is going to come true, let's consider that.
Yeah.
You know what the headlines will be. The headlines won't be, oh yeah, Xbox is launching a new console, super powerful, and can do this and that. The headlines will be, Microsoft is going to screw over their customers by ending the generation early. 100% that's going to be the headline. And like you said, the negative generates more headlines. Yeah. Like Dave Ramos says in the chat, let's be fair, PlayStation user space is large. Media are going to cater to that. It's not completely absurd, of course. Yeah. And of course, if you're a PlayStation customer, even if you pretend to not like be in the console war business, you always like to read an article on to justify your purchase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just what it is. So, yeah, I don't know if what Microsoft has to do to break out of this, but you're definitely right. They should try to give the media less reasons to write these articles, but it will ultimately, they will try to spin everything into a negative. So, all right, and then we are already in this month. That was November. December, we had the Game Awards and the GTA 6 announcement earlier, just a couple of weeks ago. Feels like recent news. And at the Game Awards, we got some great announcements, especially from Xbox. Again, of course, with Blade. And
eventually getting combat for Hellblade.
And Hellblade combat. And it was a great showing at the Game Awards. GTA 6 also showed really well. And yeah, man, that wraps up 2023. What a year. And Avatar released. Indeed. Great game. So.
Yes, it wraps up a great year.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it has been a fantastic year. It also has been a fantastic year, not just to be a gamer, but also to be a podcaster, because there were some really cool stuff we could talk about this entire year with our awesome community. And I want to take the opportunity to say a big thank you for all of you guys that show up here every week. It has been an amazing year to do podcasts with you. But the show isn't over. We still have the community questions left. And unfortunately,
I want to shout out Christopher K in the chat there, who says Age 4 is nice, but where's Age of Mythologies? I know.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah, we need that.
We do know they're making another one.
They are making one. But we have no idea when that will come out.
I'm going to be there day one, regardless. I love Age of Mythologies.
Yeah, same here.
Still got it installed on PC. Still got it installed.
Yeah? Oh, nice. I don't have it installed, but...
the Age games remain permanently installed on Steam. They are the games that are always installed.
Sweet. Chunk Mail sends in a super chat, €10 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. And he says, happy holidays and best wishes for 2024. Thank you. Happy holidays to you. And I hope you have an absolutely awesome 2024. I wish that to everyone here in the community. Actually, thank you, Chunk Mail. Dutch, unfortunately, last week we were not able to get to the community questions because for some reason OBS decided to close the stream right before we wanted to start to answer the community questions. So I'm glad we get to do it this week. All right, where do we start? There, Siki writes in, just a simple yes or no question. If Mario Wonders was the first Mario game and a new IP in 2023, would it be nominated for Game of the Year?
Oh, it'll still be nominated, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure.
Everything Nintendo does gets nominated, let's be fair.
Yes, but if it would have... If Mario would have been a completely new IP, first time Mario appears, you've never played any Mario game before, you don't know what it is, you get this game, would it be a Game of the Year? I'm really not sure. And the same goes, by the way, for Zelda. I liked Tears of the Kingdom. It was a good game, but I don't think it was a Game of the Year contender. And I'm a Zelda fan. I have the nostalgia for it. I just don't like. No, I do like it, but I don't think that the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Zeldas are the best ones in the series. Absolutely not. They're good games. They are not phenomenal games. And I think a lot of the thing with Nintendo is that we have this nostalgia. When we play Mario Wonders, we are automatically transferred back to our childhood when we played it on the NES or Super Nintendo or whatnot. And I think that plays a big part in this. I'm not saying it's a bad game per se, but I don't think anyone would consider it a Game of the Year contender if it would have been the first entry in the franchise.
Yeah.
Samuel writes in and asks a non-gaming question. What are some of your Christmas traditions that you do over the holidays?
Other than going to families for Christmas dinner, I have no other Christmas tradition.
Well, my Christmas, I have a couple of Christmas traditions because my friends that I had from school, they all live now scattered across Germany, actually Europe. Some live in other countries, in Austria and one in Spain. And the guys that I went to school with, and of course for Christmas, everybody gets back home into our hometown, which is around about a 45 to 60 minute drive from where I live now. And on 23rd, the evening, everyone comes back to visit their parents and to their hometown where we grew up, and we get absolutely hammered. Every 23rd evening, we go out for dinner. This year, we're going into a steakhouse. We're gonna have great steaks, and then we go to a pub and we see each other like it's a group of 9 guys, and then we just get drunk, and then I sleep till the afternoon on 24th, and then it's family time. It's like definitely a Christmas tradition, and ever since we have kids, we established another one, like on 24th. Here in Germany, you know, we don't have Santa coming to give us presents. We have Santa is actually coming on December 6th here in Germany. We have the Christkind. I don't know what that's in English, honestly.
I mean, when I was in the Netherlands, it was a bit different because obviously we had those, as much like Germany, we would have done essentially Christmas Day the day before, and then Christmas Day is actually meant for church, etc.
Yeah, and so we do gifts on 24th in the evening. Like that's our Christmas Eve. You know, that's when we get gifts. So yeah, we are celebrating that with the family of my wife and her brother and their kids and everyone, and so we do gifts there. And then on December 25th, we have we go to my family. You know, my grandma and everyone, my brother and everyone is coming there. We do that, and then ever since we have had kids, we established that on 26th. We do like a PJ day, with the kids. They setting up their entire toys. We get some McDonald's. Nobody is cooking then, we just get McDonald's and so that's basically the Christmas traditions here in our home. So all right. The next question comes in from our great friend Dave Ramos. By the way, it will be the first Christmas for Dave being a father.
As a dad.
As a dad, which is awesome.
Enjoy it.
I mean, his daughter is now, I think, 4 or 5 months old. So she probably won't realize that it's Christmas. The exciting Christmas will start then next year when they actually realize, oh, I'm getting gifts and this, and my kids can't sleep right now. Like every day they wake up twice a night. Is it Christmas already? But this is the magic of Christmas when you have little kids that are really, really excited about this.
What do the Germans call Santa? Because obviously it's Sinterklaas here for the Netherlands.
Yeah, we call it Nikolaus. Nikolaus.
Saint Nikolaus,
exactly. And he comes on December 6th. and he doesn't really bring like big gifts. Like you get some sweets and stuff from that. And then on 24th we have the Christkind, which is basically the ghost of Jesus, and he drops the Christkind drops in the gifts under the tree in the evening of the 24th. Yeah. So that's what we do. It's always like a little, you have to arrange that for the kids. So last year we hosted Christmas Eve here in our home. This year we are at my brother's-in-law. But what we did is we had dinner, like the Christmas dinner, and then we told the kids that the Christkind is not coming if it can see us. So we have to hide upstairs. And we all hid in the room of my youngest son, and then we said, okay, now you have to listen to the bell. When you hear the bell ring, we know that the Christkind was here, and then we let via the Alexa, we let a bell ring downstairs, and then they Christmas, and then we all rushed down, and then the gifts were there. Like you have to arrange that a little, but it's so much fun, and to see the excitement in the eyes of kids, it's like nothing you will ever experience. It's just phenomenal. So again, we digress here a little bit. Dave Ramos sends in the question, and first he starts with a statement: Band of Brothers is related. If this is this allowed? Question mark. I blame Dutch for igniting my love for that series. So on to his questions. What's your favorite character or episode from the series of Band Brothers? And my video game question is, what's your favorite World War II video game? I have not watched the series, so I can't talk about that. But maybe
you need to.
I know you've been telling me that for a long time.
Honestly, it is.
I will phenomenal. Eventually. I will.
Yeah, you will love it. It is phenomenal, but. I don't think I have a specific character. I think they're all done very, very well. But I think the two standout episodes really for Band of Brothers are the Bastogne episode, Breaking Point, and then the final one, which is called Why We Fight, when they come across the concentration camp for the first time, which is the two kind of standout ones, Breaking Point and Bastogne, where they're getting shelled to death, and then Breaking Point at the end, which is the reason why kind of they were at war in the first place. There's a lot of soldiers would kind of, why are we doing this? Why is X, Y, and Z all the way through? Why have I been fighting for 3 years straight? And then that's where they were given the stark reminder as to why they were doing it. But yeah, phenomenal. When it comes to actually video games, it's been a stark lack of really good World War II shooters since early Call of Duty and Medal of Honor.
I can't also think of a recent one in recent years that I really liked. What I remember, and that's an old ass game, is Battlefield 1942. I absolutely loved that game. But that is 20 years ago or so, even more.
Yeah.
So, Desi Baby, the pineapple pizza lover, writes in and says, "What was the very first game you played, and what system, and what game hooked you to gaming?"
Oof. I know it's a toss-up between PC and playing the Sega Mega Drive at my uncle's. Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, because he had both. I was playing, but that wasn't when I got into gaming, really. So the first consoles that I played was the Sega Mega Drive and the SNES, the Super Nintendo. It might have even been the NES at the time. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, those were the first two, and I remember playing Echo the Dolphin and Sonic, and I remember playing Mario. But when I got into gaming was my dad's PC. and playing Age of Empires. Playing Age of Empires 1 and then 2 online on an ADSL connection. I'm hoping somebody doesn't pick up the phone and it cuts your game off early.
Yeah, I remember those days, but I was already a little bit older by then. Yeah.
Yeah. Then playing Combat Flight Simulator, and I still wish to this day Microsoft released a new Combat Flight Sim because that was phenomenal. But yeah, it was just PC gaming in general was what really ignited me before the Xbox come into things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the PlayStation 1 and Final Fantasy 7. That's when really, like, both Halo, when it launched for Xbox, was one of the standouts, but Final Fantasy 7 on PlayStation 1, God, I was addicted to that. Final Fantasy 7 and 9, I'd come in from school, go into the bedroom on this tiny little grey CRT monitor built in with a VCR underneath it and play on the PlayStation 1 straight after school. And then my friend got the PlayStation, the Xbox One when that launched, and I was straight on that as well. And yeah, that was it. So what about you?
It is really hard to remember what was my first game. Because, you know...
Let's go the one that got you into gaming. The one that really ignited that.
I always say my first console was the original Game Boy. And that was Super Mario Land, and
so much time on that.
Yeah, and my father had an Atari, but I remember he wasn't too happy about me playing on that at that age. I think I simply was too young for those games. But I remember there was a great Batman game on that I loved, but I don't know if that was my first game ever. I remember getting the Game Boy and Tetris and Super Mario Land, and then of course Link's Awakening and games like that. A little later I got the NES, and after that of course the Super Nintendo, and I just fell in love with video games. So yeah, it's hard to pinpoint it down to one particular game. But of course, Zelda: A Link to the Past and Super Mario World were games that absolutely hooked me on video games, man.
Yeah.
All right, Dutch. But with that, I want to come to an end of this show, actually of this year. It has been a great show. It has been an even more fantastic year for gaming and doing the podcast with you. And I want to say, before I thank the community, I want to say also a big thank you to you for putting up with me each and every week.
Likewise.
It's just an absolute blast to do this podcast each and every Thursday with you. Thank you so much for being a good friend and an even better person. It's been an absolute honor to do this podcast with you. So thank you for that, man.
Likewise. Yeah, it's been an absolute blast, and I'm glad we eventually got to meet at Gamescom,
Absolutely.
and I can't wait to meet up again next year at Gamescom.
We will definitely do that.
Yeah.
And let me also thank again our absolutely fantastic community. 23 has been a fantastic year for video games, but it has been an even more awesome year because of this community. I always say gaming is so much more than the actual act of playing a game for me now, and that is because of all of you guys, whether it be here on YouTube or whether it's on the socials, on Twitter, or on the Discord or wherever. Or actually on Xbox playing games with you guys. It's like something very special, and I'm very, very humbled and honored to be a part of this community, and it means so much that you guys show up here every week and get in the discussions with us, and it is just... You guys are absolutely phenomenal. I love you guys. Thank you so much for a great 2023. I do want to wish you all Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and even better 2024. Hope you get to spend some quiet time with your loved ones, enjoy some gaming over the holidays, and I hope to see you all next year for a great 2024. Thank you so much. You guys are absolutely amazing. Dave Ramos also sends in a super member chat saying, cheers to a fantastic 2024. The opportunity to see Dutch grow as a Wired creator and another 12 months of gaming. This community is the best, and absolutely. And thanks, Dave, for being a very great member of this community, like everyone else here. You guys are awesome. Again, we will be back next year on January the 4th. We will do definitely a preview show for 24 and talk about everything that happened in between the years. And yeah, for now, again, a big thank you. Dutch, anything?
Yeah, same with me. Massive thank you to the community for supporting this show and all the shows that we're part of.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the reason we keep going and we keep enjoying doing this every week is because of you guys. So thank you for that support, and roll on another big year next year, but we'll no doubt grow again.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, happy holidays. Have a great new year, great new start in the year. We see you guys next year. Until then, don't forget to game on.